For fans, by fans. Section 336, the next generation of Baltimore sports talk.
Today on the show, the Orioles are still in first place. I think they've been in first place every time we've done a show this season, but I'm not sure how much longer it can last as they're now tied with the Blue Jays. Also, in a minute, I'm going to be nice to the intern because I promised Matt and Bert I'd be nice while he was gone, and we get to talk about some villains retiring. And my button's not working.
Section 336.com. Buckle up, birds, be ready to ride. Your host, Matt Josh and Bird, are ready to fly. Baltimore's best, Section 336, the #1 sports broadcast. Get your fix. What's the news? Let's talk about Buck, our favorite Orioles. What's the latest lineup? Home runs and stolen bases. This is a trip. Stay tuned in at 336.
You know, I should have started the Today on the show with the fact that we've got Glenn Clark joining us.
Yeah, I was a little offended.
Yeah. I
thought about leaving.
Yeah, I figured with all that time waiting for you, you could wait a little bit as well.
So I am not regular in Arnold, Maryland. I have to be honest with you. I don't wander down Ritchie Highway much. I like to keep
Not many do.
I like to keep myself to the Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Harford County corridor that I've been comfortable with for the better part of my life.
You're missing a lot of nice Anne Arundel County.
I know that to be true, but it's just what works for me, Josh. It's really all that matters is I'm a me guy, you know what I mean?
But you're also a go work in D.C. guy.
Yeah, but it's a straight shot.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a straight shot down that way. So I was like, all right, I did the math. It's going to take me from Hamden. It's going to take me somewhere around 45 to 50 minutes to get here. I'm like, all right, no problem. So I go to leave, and then I know that you've probably, everybody that's worked in an office has this moment where you assume that everyone is gone for the day because you've stayed that late. Like, you're just like, nobody's here.
Yeah.
And then you look out, and you're like, oh, boy, the lights are still on in the rest of the office. Somebody's here. And it happened to be my boss. And there's just not a lot you can do. Like, when the boss stops you to chat, you're like, I gotta, All right, What's up, man? What's up?
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, my boss I work out of my truck a lot, and my boss has this knack of, he calls me every day as soon as I pull in my driveway.
Right, of course.
And then I got to sit there and talk,
Dude,
and I'm like, I don't know if he has a tracking on my truck to notify him when I get home.
Most likely scenario. So, I'd look into that.
Oh, there's a GPS tracker in it. I just don't know if that's what's cueing him to call me, but it's every time when I get home.
Dude, how nice is this place, by the way?
Yeah, thank you.
Holy smokes. This is incredible.
We're trying to look professional.
I've worked for multi-billion-dollar companies that don't have studios this nice. Like multiple multi-billion-dollar companies that don't have studios this nice.
Yeah, you've worked in some in-house studios.
I have worked there, yes. Right. I have worked in a little bit of everything in my career. I've worked in studios that were that barely qualify as studios as much as they qualify as garbage disposals. But this is great, man. This is great. Well done,
Thank you.
Sir. Well done.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the Olympics because I don't care about the Olympics.
Really?
Except a little. I've tuned in a little bit. But today my Facebook feed is filled with you because of the Olympics.
Oh yeah.
So I gotta ask you about this. But I did say I'd be nice to the intern because he showed up today, and I told Matt and Bert that one of these shows while they're gone in Africa and Florida over these 2 months, I'd allow the intern to come out of there and come sit at the big table.
Okay.
So, intern, you can come on in here and join us. And I even have your computer set up. If you press the I button, it'll pop up with the 3-camera shot so you can come and join us.
Wow. Look at you. Who is this guy? Man, I knew you.
He's horrible. He screws everything up.
Okay. Like, do I need to know anything? Do I need to know his name?
Intern.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right.
Right? Yeah. So
I don't know how just looking at him, I don't get a good feeling.
Well,
it's a weird vibe.
Big Democrat. But he says this is media, so he can't talk about it.
You know, it's a weird thing because I'm so non-politically, like my mind just doesn't work that way, right? Like
right.
I largely don't care about any of it. I don't know when I'm supposed to be angry about something. Like when everybody else. So is the Trump thing today? Did he really say that we should kill Hillary? Is that a thing that actually happened?
I don't know. I didn't see that yet.
So there's something going on where
I don't know.
he said Second Amendment people should take it upon themselves or something like that. And I don't know if I'm supposed to be like, hooray! Or like.
But isn't there also a aren't we supposed to also acknowledge that like maybe he's just a normal guy and joking like the rest of us?
Yeah, I'm sure.
So,
and somebody else would tell me, and she's responsible for people actually getting killed, right? Like
right.
That's
Right.
Like, you're not allowed to have like a thought without somebody telling you that you're wrong.
Yeah, whoever that Iran guy is, if she killed or
right.
something.
Correct.
Right.
Murdered him with her bare hands,
Yeah.
obviously. I think everybody knew that in cold blood in front of his family on Christmas.
Yep.
So, yeah, I just don't think that you're allowed to say anything about anybody because somebody else is just going to tell you that you're wrong. So I pretty much just shut up myself about all of it. And
which is what I'm trying to do right now.
that's smart, man. That's smart. That's probably the smartest thing you've done in your life.
All right. So, Glenn, you gotta explain this to me. I know. Well, I've watched the Olympics enough to see the swimmers all come out and see them all with the leeches on their back, looking like. Where your question, well, is that the real water we've been hearing about for so much?
Yeah.
But then I saw on Facebook it's something called cupping.
Cupping.
And you apparently went real deep into it.
I did. I got real. So cupping, I still don't really know exactly what it's all about. But okay, here's the deal. So you see all the swimmers with the circle marks on their back. They look like big alien hickeys, right? And I went through the same thing that everybody else did, and I immediately go to the internet. Hey, what's up with all the hickeys on the backs of the swimmers? And I see it's this thing called cupping, right? And like most people have just sort of said, "Oh, right, it's cupping," like
right, just accept it.
That's the end of it. But then I said, "No, seriously, what the f is cupping? Like, what does that even mean?" And they're like, "Oh, it's an ancient healing practice." I'm like, I still don't understand.
Right, and if it's so ancient, why have we never seen it until now?
Right. Wouldn't we just notice alien hickeys on people over the course of eternity? And I haven't done that, so I decided to call around, and luckily. Jared Felice, who's great, he's over at Under Armour in the big campus at FX Studios. I called and he said, "Dude, I'll put some cupping on your back today." You know what I mean? I'm like, all right. So I went over yesterday.
Now, is this a thing that only swimmers do?
No, apparently, like he said, there's a lot of athletes of all types, and they get all types of athletes there in Under Armour. And he said a lot of them do it, but I could tell the moment I got there was a bit of an eye roll to the whole thing. He's like, "Look, dude, this is a fad. This is Michael Phelps did it, so now like, a bunch of people are calling me about it, and they want cupping, and you shouldn't just be showing up somewhere and asking for cupping. It's not going to do that much for you." He's like, "If you want to get cupping done, that's fine, but let me tell you about 5 other things in the process of healing that you can do."
What's the cupping supposed to do?
So the idea is it essentially like it's supposed to release tension, right? It's supposed to help with soft tissue. I don't really know what soft tissue is. I just know that every football player has a soft tissue injury right now. That's the only injury that anyone has. They're like, "Hey, that guy missed practice. What was his injury?" They're like, "Oh, it's a soft tissue injury." I'm like, "Well, like where? Like which soft tissue?" No, it's just a soft tissue injury. That's just what they say. I think Ronnie Stanley right now, the first-round pick for the Ravens, is out with a soft tissue injury. So this is supposed to help like separate the layers of tissue that are in your body, like because they just suction cup. They like literally suction your skin up in this cup, right? And it's creepy. Like it's creepy as hell.
Does it hurt?
Not really. It doesn't really hurt. Like I didn't. Now he said you can do a lot of them depending on your threshold of pain. I'm like, well, you could have done one everywhere on me.
So it's like some weird acupuncture.
Yeah, kind of like that. And so they just suck it up, and it's supposed to like separate the layers of tissue and then increase blood flow, and that somehow increases performance. I got to be honest with you, and this is no knock on Jared, who I could tell sort of was rolling his eyes at the whole thing the entire time. It didn't do a thing for me. It did nothing. I felt no different. All I had was these big, creepy marks on my back that look like the cutouts and Signs, the M. Night Shyamalan movie. Yeah. Like, that's all it really is. Now, he also did this thing on me because he's like, look, let me show you some other things that we encourage for people that do the cupping. He's like, try dry needling. I'm like,
no, that sounds worse.
Yeah, I ain't sharing a needle. I know that much. You know what I mean? Like, I better get my own. He said, this one actually works. I'm like, all right. So he sticks this needle like right at my shoulder blade in my back. And I'm like, and it stings. Like, it really stings. Dude, as soon as he pulls it out, I'm like, there's no tension in my shoulder. Like, that worked brilliantly. Like, I'm blown away by the release of tension in my shoulder from the dry needling. So my I don't know, 2.5 stars for the cupping, you know what I mean, would not cup again. But the dry needling, I give that a solid 4.5 stars, and would, my Yelp review, would dry needle again. Yes, that was really quality.
So yes to dry needle, but the cupping does not let you then bend like that mermaid flip that Phelps been doing.
I assumed
that wiggle thing.
Right, and I did what I did notice, because I obviously had no shirt on, is that a lot of people were pointing out how similar I looked to Michael Phelps. I did get a lot of that when I was there at Under Armour. They were like, "Oh my God, is that Michael Phelps? I thought he was in Rio." And I was like, "No, it's just me, guys. Sorry."
Did anyone ask for your autograph?
Oh yeah, but I get that a lot anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's a pretty regular occurrence for me on a day-to-day basis.
So I did find out what soft tissue is. It's apparently anything that connects, supports, or surrounds other structures and organs of the body, not being hard tissue.
That could be anything.
Yeah,
that doesn't narrow it.
That sounds
but
like
it's pretty
tissue.
much anything that's not like bone.
Okay, but
like organs.
So where is Ronnie Stanley hurt right now? Like, what part of his body is hurt?
Exactly.
I think everything.
Do we need to be,
do we need to be freaking out? Is the guy not going to play like Rashad Perriman a year ago?
Right, like in 2 months when they say Manny Machado soft tissue, we need to panic?
You, what is wrong with you? You terrible human being.
He's got his.
About to use some words.
He's got his bio knees. There's no tissue there anymore. That's all
probably
metal.
True, actually. That's probably true. How dare you suggest such a thing? May you. We wait for 2 years when he goes to New York, and then we'll wish that upon him.
Right. When he and Bryce Harper and
the super team.
Fernandez, when they all go up there.
Super team in New York, no doubt.
But hey, the Orioles are at least still in first place right now. They're tied with the Blue Jays.
What's going on with Boston? Oh no, Boston's not in first place yet.
It's the Blue Jays. And that game, I haven't checked what's going on with that yet. Not sure if it even started. But I mean, they'll probably win, and then we'll.
Well, the Blue Jays are the team to beat, right? In the division.
Yeah, Boston's falling back. I mean. Even Texas, we played Texas well. We played Cleveland well. It's even when it comes to postseason, it's going to be the Blue Jays that we're concerned
They just
with.
appear to be the most balanced team of all of them. They've got a bunch of pitching. They're going with the 6-man rotation, which is goofy. They can play a little bit of defense. I know Pilar's hurt right now, right? Like he's out for a couple weeks, but I mean, look, he's something special to watch. They can score runs, obviously a ton by home run, but they're not quite as reliant as the Orioles are. Like, it's not all or nothing with the home run the way the Orioles are.
Except that the big thing is the pitching. And they've had it all season.
Right. They don't have J-Hap's been really good, obviously. J-Hap's been unbelievable, and Sanchez has been incredible. So they've had two really solid, count on them every time they pitch type of pitchers that the Orioles have maybe had one.
We've got one that exactly.
Right.
It's maybe we can count on Tillman.
Well, I mean, and you hope that Bundy's.
Yeah. If you get me through the second inning, Tillman's good. Great. This is another good game for Tillman.
Yeah. So that's been the difference in the two. Look, the back end of their bullpen isn't as good as the Orioles' back end of the bullpen, obviously, but I think in general they're the more balanced, they're the more all-around team, and they're not quite as drastically like the Orioles' road to home thing is just going to be the type of thing that's going to baffle me. It's one thing that you're better at home than you are on the road. Like, you should be better at home than you are on the road. And you build your team to be better at home than you are on the road. You build a team for your ballpark. But this is almost absurd. Like, it makes no sense how infuriatingly bad they're capable of being, how horrifyingly lost they seem to be offensively.
And that's what it is in a season where we started in the spring, understanding why people were picking the Orioles for last, basing it all on the pitching. Mm-hmm. The pitching hasn't killed them in too many games.
Second half of the season, the pitching's been fine.
No, right. Yesterday was a 3-2 loss.
Right.
I mean, it's Gausman. You know when Gausman pitches, no one scores.
It's so weird.
It's the worst luck that and I don't understand, like, for Gausman, how frustrating must that be if every time you go out there and no one's helping you out.
Yeah, we've talked to pitchers about that. And
it's got to be. It has to at least affect you a little.
There's
mentally.
no way you can't. You can say everything you want about, hey, they're robots. You know, they're well-trained animals. They just go out there and do their job. But yeah, I mean, it gets to a point where the numbers are this staggering, and it feels like a fait accompli. You know what I mean? Like, you get on the mound and you're just like, these guys just aren't going to score for me. Particularly on the road, obviously, where they struggle so much anyway offensively. And
they're in Oakland, a horrible team that had a little bit of chips that they traded.
Yeah, right. The only pieces they had. Although I'd take Chris Davis, the other Chris Davis.
Yeah,
I'd take him, man. I'd take him on my team any day. He's a nice player. Oakland's, and then you have everything else that goes with it, right? It's such a bizarre ballpark. Like I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound like one of those ridiculous hot takes, right? But how does baseball allow that? Like, of all the silly things in baseball,
For the Coliseum to still exist?
right? How do you allow for it? Baseball looks like one thing in 29 of 30 stadiums. Baseball is played a certain way, but then you go to this one place where it almost becomes a different game because of all the foul territory.
But see, that's the beauty of baseball is that every stadium's different.
I hear you.
You could make the same argument about Boston, saying that baseball's played
Right, the big
everywhere, and now
wall,
I've got this big wall I got to
right.
play
And,
off of.
Look, some of those things are goofy, but this.
Now, if you want to tell me Houston and the Hill,
I mean,
I'll
everybody
go
agrees
with you
the
on
Hill
there.
is
But
stupid. The
but-
Hill's one of the dumbest things in the history
I
of the
mean,
game.
the foul territory. It's because the stadium is way too old.
Right, I get it. It's one of those
Yeah.
old, multi-purpose stadiums.
Right,
It's-
I don't remember, but Memorial Stadium had a bunch of foul territory as well, I'm sure.
And I'm sure the Vet and Three Rivers and all
Right.
these other stadiums that were like that. But the idea is now, it's one thing when it was like that in 12 places.
True.
You know what I mean?
And
there's one stadium, and it literally, whenever people were bringing up the name Rich Hill, now as it turns out, it's a goofy thing. Rich Hill actually far better away from Oakland than he was in Oakland this season. Go figure that. But like when people bring up the name Rich Hill, the first thing I would say back was, dude, I have no idea if any Oakland pitcher is any good. Because you can get so many more outs
with the foul territory
on balls that
Sure.
wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like
that would be in the stands.
and it limits the number of pitches you have to throw
Right.
as well. So
Makes sense.
The way that you view a pitcher from Oakland is completely different because you just have no idea if they're actually any good or if they just happen to be getting pop fouls that are going for outs, and that's drastically improving their numbers. It's a different game in Oakland, and I get it. It sounds like I'm whining because the Orioles lost a game there last night, and as it turns out, they actually took advantage of the goofy foul territory because Manny Machado got the cheapest RBI he'll ever
Right.
get in the history of his life. But it's just such a weird, awful place.
And you're right. In this day and age, we see them come in for like a night and completely make a stadium look different for like one night at a concert.
Right.
So you could totally bring
You
some
could do
more seating
something,
in
correct.
to bring the fans closer to the game.
and limit it. Like if you want to say
Right.
there's still going to be a little bit more foul territory here than there's going to be in other places, sure, got it, great, no problem. But it's comical. It's literally we picked up the game and moved it to a cricket ground. You know what I mean? Like where you can go hit the ball backwards
Right.
if you so choose. You're playing it in a different place, and I know that's stupid and it's a dumb thing to moan about, but
right. It's not why they're losing, but it's
every
right.
time they play there, I just sort of like shake my head. Like they're still doing this. It's a comedy that they're still doing this out there.
Well, and wouldn't it be? It would be one thing if at least there was some good aspect of the stadium.
Oh,
but
right.
the clubhouse
Yeah,
sucks.
right.
There's-
They always flood.
Right. It always
Yeah.
floods. There's
It always
always
smells like
sewage
poop.
problems.
Yeah, right.
And it's like
Rio. They're playing in
right.
Rio.
And right across the bay is one of the nicest stadiums in baseball.
It's so true. It's so true. And you imagine, I think a bunch of people from Baltimore went out there this week.
Right,
Like, I
because
think-
it's the back-to-back series.
Right. They went out for both Oakland and San Francisco. So imagine if it was the other way around. Like imagine if you go to San Francisco first and you're like, oh, this is amazing, right? Then you show up in Oakland and you're just like, oh.
Well, I'm sure that's what it was years ago when you would go to RFK to see the Nats.
That's true.
And then coming
right?
up to Camden Yards.
Yeah, and you get that. Now, and I'm not a big Nats Park guy. I know you and I were at the same game one game last
I
year.
have many things I hate about Nats Park.
It just doesn't. It's so unbaseball like to
I
me.
don't like the openness.
Yeah, the openness, I don't know that I necessarily disagree. The openness is goofy, but it's the separation. If you don't sit on the lower level, it's
Yes.
like you're not there.
yeah.
I've told Josh I love those guys' seats at Camden Yards. I actually love
Right,
sitting.
section 336, 334.
Right.
Yeah,
You guys sit in
right.
334, right? So I love sitting there. There's some of my favorite seats in the stadium because you can see everything,
Right.
but
And
yet you don't feel like you're watching from a different area code.
No, you can tell immediately how the ball is coming off the bat and where
Yeah.
it's going. And you don't have those stupid fans that are cheering for every fly ball to be a home run.
Right. But you go to DC and you sit in those seats and you
can't tell. You're way up there.
You're like watching from a spaceship.
No.
It's nowhere close. Actually, I've sat in the press box there.
Right,
and
because that's above the upper deck.
I refuse to go sit in the
Right.
press box there ever again.
I will say this: I do like the bar outside in left field, because then they converted our
the like red zone.
Yeah.
thing
The
or something?
outdoor
Like
area?
the
You mean
red
outside the
club?
stadium?
Yeah,
What it's
their
called?
their version of the center field bar.
yeah.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that what you're
We
talking
took-
about?
we took that and made it into the
Red Porch
bar.
or
Well,
something
yeah,
like
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's it's been like baseball's come around on that idea. The one thing that's great about baseball is like there's 162 games, so inevitably at some point during the year, people are just not going to be as invested on every pitch as you want them to. So you have to provide them something else to entertain them during the course of a game. And actually, even football, who's only got 8 games, like even a lot of those stadiums are coming around to the idea. You see what's going on in Miami and in Jacksonville and places like that.
Football is a different thing where fantasy football has grown so much.
It's so important, right?
That now they need to incorporate that into
No
the
doubt.
live game
No
because
doubt.
football is built to watch on TV.
But what baseball's really done is they've gotten the idea that we need to make this more of a social activity.
Right.
We need to make this more of a place to hang out after
and
work.
that's the difference. Where football is built for TV, baseball is still built to come watch in person.
So it's a weird thing though, Josh, right? Because I don't know how much you guys have talked about it, but I have been annoyed beyond belief by the people that go out of their way to complain about attendance at Camden Yards this season.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Right. It's so. If you understand the way the economics work in baseball, the singular thing that matters in economics is
TV.
local TV.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing because in the NFL there is no local TV. Like what matters
Right.
is national TV. Like you need these big national contracts to be absurd. Baseball, it's a very specific thing. The only thing that matters is local TV. You need your RSN, your regional sports network, to be ridiculously profitable. Now, I think Masson's got some issues in that department.
And
right?
I would definitely prefer a national type rather than all these regionals.
Right.
But
right.
I think then we'd get better deals with streaming. The fact that we can't stream the
That's a
Orioles
really good
games
point.
is ridiculous. And
I agree.
It's because Major League Baseball can't get it straightened out.
But I think they're coming around there.
They're being forced around it. But
Yeah.
it's much harder for baseball where the NFL can just say we're doing it.
Right, it's the way it is,
Baseball
yeah.
got to make a deal with Masson, the Yes Network.
It's a good point. It's a good point. And
So-
and slowly, in part because there's so many CSNs,
Right.
there's so many Fox Sports that have rights. Like they're bundling them together and
Yes.
saying we're going to make sure that we can stream our games, and where a
Right.
Masson or a Yes is a little bit slower to come around on that and say, well, we individually own our rights. We're not in such a rush to go
Exactly.
about doing that because we want to protect it, and it's stupid. And I agree that needs to change, but. The attendance thing is so irrelevant, but yet you'd still like to improve it.
Well,
right?
yeah,
And
because we do.
it's-
We just watched the series up in Toronto recently.
Yeah,
and
it was a mob scene, wasn't it?
That stadium has been empty for years,
Yeah.
and they're selling out games now.
And
I
how
think,
tough was it to listen to Orioles players talk about how intense it was
Right.
there? Like that was one of the more that bugged you. And Toronto's got a few inherent advantages. They have an entire country to draw upon.
Right, exactly.
They're the only team. Plus,
And right now they're the only sport up there.
right? Yeah, there's no hockey to
There's
compete
no
against at the
hockey.
moment. Yeah,
There's no CFL right now.
yeah. There's no NFL coming up in a month or anything like that.
Right.
Nobody's worried about training camp right now.
Right, I'm pretty sure. I think the CFL starts later, from what I remember.
I think that was pretty. Actually, think
Was it the
it
same
became
time?
like a pretty summer
All right.
thing. It's probably still going on right now.
Maybe they're.
But what you're referring to, their secondary market is Buffalo, which is a great secondary market,
Yeah.
right? But they also have literally all of Canada to draw from. If
Right.
you're a baseball fan that lives in
You're not rooting for the Nats.
right, you're inherently probably going to root. Now, maybe in Western Canada, you might be more inclined to root for the Mariners, right? Because
Right,
it's a little
sure.
bit maybe. But I talked to Adam Lowen, who grew up in British Columbia, right? And he was like, dude, I rooted when he signed with the Blue Jays. It was a big deal to him because he's like, that's who I rooted for.
Yeah.
The Canadian flag hangs up at their games.
Oh, well, if you want to know a little bit about how much money the Toronto Blue Jays are making with their streamings, my day job, I'm in like the tech field and
Yeah.
work on TVs and stuff. And I noticed when I was watching the Blue Jays, they run ads now that they run every Blue Jay game in 4K high definition,
Really?
which is some expensive cameras
Wow.
and even more expensive streaming for Rogers Network. But Rogers,
I thought you couldn't watch anything in 4K yet. I thought you could only watch the video.
In the U.S., there is no cable company, DirecTV, no
Yeah.
one's streaming 4K yet. In Canada, the Blue Jays.
Wow. Wow, man. Yeah. So they have an inherent advantage, and that's why it's unfair to compare Toronto to Baltimore. But it's still tough to
And
listen.
what it is we see that crowd, and it reminds us of
Yeah.
the few
Right.
times we got to experience that over the past few
And trust
years.
me, if the Orioles are playing relevant games in September,
It's gonna be back.
It's gonna be like that. We all know that the Camden Yards is the loudest place on the planet. If You're talking about a playoff game. If the Orioles host playoff games this year, it's going to be bonkers.
Yeah.
It's going to be ape-s.
Right,
You know
and
what I
then we
mean?
get those comments from the other players about commenting how
ridiculous the atmosphere is.
I don't remember. One of the pitch was it Verlander who commented
Might have
last
been.
time
That
when he had
sounds
the pitch
right,
that
yeah.
it was just ridiculous and one of the loudest he's pitched.
It's a 162-game season in a single market that happens to be, as we all know, not one of the biggest markets in the country.
Right.
The attendance isn't going to be, no matter how good the team is.
And if you want an excuse, we lost half our businesses to Washington.
Right.
And all of those business contracts and stuff.
But the fact remains, the TV ratings are tremendous. The third best in all of baseball, as we found out from Sports Business Journal at the All-Star break. Everyone is engaged with the team right now. The city is very much interested in the Orioles. Dude, people think of me as a football guy. I've barely talked about football on my show. Barely.
Yeah.
Barely. My columns at Pressbox have been about the Orioles or baseball related. Like I wrote about Teixeira this week. I wrote about Ichiro this week.
Well, yeah. 4 years ago at this time, we'd be all in on football season.
Right. That's what would be driving us every day.
We'd be excited. I mean, the first preseason game's Thursday?
Yep. I haven't spoken a speck about who's going to play, what are we interested in seeing. I haven't done any of those topics at all on my show, which used to be my entire summer. My entire summer used to be
talking about the new guys.
Correct. And now I haven't talked about it at all.
Right.
The city isn't, and I don't do that because it's me.
No,
I do it because it's what I can tell
everyone's
the city's
bought
engaged in. Yes. All
right. So 4 years ago, I just read this before. 4 years ago was Manny's first game.
Oh, that's right.
He got caught up.
That's right.
Did you see the starting lineup for his first game?
No.
Nick Markakis.
Okay.
J.J. Hardy.
Yeah.
Adam Jones. Matt Wieters. That
sounds like an Orioles lineup for the most part, right?
It reminds you of when Hardy used to be a really good hitter.
Yeah, that's true.
Lou Ford.
Oh, God. God.
Intern, do you even know who Lou Ford is?
I remember how bad he was.
All right.
I mean, that's something. I mean, he was
he wasn't that bad.
He was the perfect Dan Duquette reclamation project.
He was. Yeah, he was.
And he wasn't that good in 2012, but he had enough hits. You know what I mean?
He wasn't a Cruz Trumbo. These have been These have been Duquette's.
This was the dumpster diving. Right.
That works for Duquette to get this right twice now is crazy.
Lou Ford. Wow.
We then go to Mark Reynolds.
I was a big Mark Reynolds
I liked Mark
guy.
Reynolds too. I did not
Mark
like
Reynolds
to see him
guy,
go.
Man.
Followed by Chris Davis, Robert Andino.
So did they still have Reynolds at third at that point, or was Davis DHing?
Davis was DHing in this game.
Right, because Manny came up and immediately started playing third.
Manny went to third,
Right.
And Manny Machado ninth at third.
He batted ninth.
He batted ninth.
Manny Machado batted ninth. What a world.
And Wei Yin Chen was the pitcher.
I loved Wei Yin Chen too.
He's struggling down in Miami this year.
I know, but I love the guy. He was. Did you miss the day when the Orioles pitching was so bad at the beginning of the season? Like what you didn't give
he was the guy
for Wei Yin Chen and Miguel Gonzalez to be around, like the guys that you could at least count on to give you some innings.
Right, because
Wei Yin Chen came around on the innings. I remember at the beginning of his career he was not an innings guy, but he came around on the innings.
In the Jake Arrieta, Brian Mattis years.
Yeah, he could not go beyond 5. Like you would get to the 6th inning with Wei Yin Chen and you'd say, "What are you even doing?" Like you just start. Buck, why you even put him back out there? Just go ahead.
I mean, that was as late as last year. He was still a 5-inning pitcher.
Yeah, there were moments. But I don't know what it was. I felt like he came around a little bit on that. And he just gave you a chance, which you really appreciated. You really, really appreciated having guys give you a chance to win.
Right.
When the alternative was Ubaldo Jimenez.
But it's amazing how much the city has changed and came back, Orioles, pretty fast.
Well, and baseball with it. I think that's important, man.
Because even during those losing times, I tried to tell people that's when you would have the stupid arguments on the radio. Is this a football town or a baseball town?
Yeah.
And this town's always been a baseball town.
Inherently, in part because we didn't have football for a long time. 2, because we've had baseball for forever. You know what I mean? Like it's in our blood. And also, and I always remind people of this. There's 162 baseball games.
Right.
Let's say even when they're bad. Even when the Orioles were bad, if you checked out, you still watched how many baseball games?
Right. Turn on the TV. What's my option? I can watch the Orioles or
a reruns
or some
terrible
building home. I can watch one of the 20 renovation shows or the Orioles, where at least I know the characters.
You're inevitably going to watch baseball way more than you realize you are. Now that when they're good, I mean, we're talking about maybe 300 to 500 hours worth of baseball
Right.
that you're going to watch just of the Orioles.
Well, I can say this as someone who grew up like during the dark times.
Yeah.
Like it actually feels like they want to win and actually care about the
Well,
sport
yeah,
now.
I mean, that's important. But I'm just talking about baseball in general.
They always wanted to win. You just
You
were
know
you were just a Red Sox fan during the dark time.
Oh, is that what it was? Is that you're a bad guy?
I came back around.
All right, well, I appreciate that. That means something.
The true Oriole fans, even during those bad times, every year thought this is the year the cavalry actually starts pitching.
Yeah, I don't
was
know if
6,
I always.
I didn't have that
I kind
chance.
of gave up on that a
Yeah.
couple of times. I'll tell you this: I grew up. I was like I was obsessed with Jeffrey Hammonds. I was obsessed with the Orioles when I was a kid. Right? Like I went as Brady Anderson for Halloween one year. I was obsessed with the Orioles. I drank milk because Cal Ripken told me to drink milk. Right? Like that was the way it was. And what I felt during the lean years was that it didn't hurt me as much. Like because of the Orioles, but it really kind of made me fall out of love of baseball because I didn't feel like my team had a chance. And all of the stuff that we went through where like baseball's unfair and all those things like made me feel negatively about baseball. Now it also came at a time where there were a lot of bad guys in the game of baseball, right? There was a lot of things that you didn't like about baseball at the same time. You didn't like Barry Bonds, you didn't like Alex Rodriguez, you didn't like what was being propped up in front of you. There was a lot to not like. So I fell out of love of baseball. I did. I just it's the way it worked. You know what I mean? My team stunk. The game was being run by bad guys, you know, like I couldn't deal with it. I fell back in love with baseball, oddly enough, when I went to Arizona and I worked 2 years out there, and it just happened to be that the Diamondbacks made the NLCS that year.
Right, they had Randy Johnson.
They had
then,
Randy
right?
Johnson. They had Brandon Webb. They did get Randy Johnson back. It was Justin Upton's rookie year. He was like 19 years old. He's running around in right field and doing things that he shouldn't be doing in the playoffs. Mark Reynolds was on that team. It was part of the reason why I love Mark Reynolds so much. I fell back in love with just baseball. Going to the games every night, being a part of it, seeing the way that a city is lifted up by a baseball team. There's nothing quite like being in a city, when you're talking about 40,000 people going to a baseball game, taking off work in the afternoon, the city shutting down on a work day for a baseball game. There's just nothing that you can quite compare that to. Like even in basketball and hockey, they don't do that. They don't play playoff games in the afternoons. Baseball is the only sport that can give you that.
Right.
And you really see how much a city is invested in the team when you experience that, right? Like think about game 2 of the Detroit series, the Delman Young game. That was an afternoon game on a weekday. The city of Baltimore shut down. There was nobody working that day in the city of Baltimore.
Right.
It was the city was an absolute standstill because of what was going on. That feeling is just it's incomparable in sports. There is nothing that compares to that, and that taught me to love baseball again. And obviously, as the Orioles have come around,
It makes it easier.
And the game
Yeah.
is now you see more of young stars that you don't think are evil. You know what I mean? I think that's helped as well. Like I can enjoy watching. I really enjoy watching Jose Altuve play baseball, right? Like it's just a lot of fun. I really enjoy watching Mike Trout play baseball. I really enjoy, I even enjoy Bryce Harper. I think a lot of people think of him as a heel, but I enjoy watching Bryce Harper play.
I'm the opposite. I look at him as a heel.
Okay,
And
and that's fine. I get it. Like I think he kind of wants to be a heel, right?
And that's more of I look at a guy who's got so much talent, yet he seems so self-focused that like
Yeah, I hear you.
he almost plays the game in a stupid way, especially when he was young. When he was
Well, he's reckless.
you
right.
run into the wall
Right.
face first.
Right.
Argue because he didn't want to be benched for a day that when he needs a day off.
Yeah, I hear you. I get it.
you know.
I do get it. I just
But there is.
I kind of like his personality. I
know,
kind of like
there's the cockiness to take an off day and go swing the softball bat at the mall that you're like, all right, that's kind of cool. And
Yeah. It's a pro wrestling thing. I
Right,
think because
it
I'm into
is.
pro wrestling, I'm into Bryce Harper. And the only guy that like I really got joy from outside of Baltimore in those years, oddly enough, was Ichiro, right? Who I just wrote about. Like he was
Right.
the only baseball player that really gave me joy to watch play the game. I probably would have felt the same way about Jeter if he wasn't a Yankee. You know what I mean?
Right, Jeter was the guy I'm not going to boo Jeter.
No.
I got too much respect for Jeter, but I can't say I'm a fan of
No,
Jeter.
you didn't
Yeah.
enjoy watching him play
Right.
because he played for the Yankees.
But you had to admit that he was one of the best
But
guys.
if Derek Jeter played for the Astros, he might have been your favorite baseball player.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's what it was for me with Ichiro. Is like, Ichiro was my favorite baseball player because it was irrelevant. The Orioles, the Mariners,
Right.
who cares, right? Like, I can enjoy watching this dude play, and every time he showed up at Camden Yards, he was a freaking monster, man. He killed us.
I used to like Hamilton when he was having those really good years.
Yeah, plus
down
he
in
was
Texas.
such a likable, like you wanted
he's
to
just
root
a good
for
guy.
him.
He had the good recovery story and
Yeah,
all. And
yeah.
But yeah, he'd come into Camden Yards
he
and
would
hit
just
4 home
tear
runs.
us apart,
Yeah.
no doubt, man.
All right, well, here's a nice pause.
I don't know if I'm
After-
supposed to be the one
No.
that carries this.
No, I'm
You're
gonna
listening
carry
to
it.
no.
I'm going to carry it. It's been what's it been, like 6 weeks now carrying it without Matt and Bert?
Yeah.
They've been gone. They'll be back next week. Bert will be back from Disney, and Matt will be back from Africa. One's been actually serving and helping others. One's been, I think, enjoying Epcot.
He's been helping his kids.
No, Disney's all about Bert.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Okay, is that... all right, let me
and-
ask a question about that.
No, I think I saw they're watching on the live stream, right?
I think so.
I saw my
So
sister comment.
he's going to hear me?
Yeah, he'll
Okay,
hear you.
all right, and that's fine. Is the adult Disney obsession creepy or not? And I know this is tough because you're talking, we're talking about, it's real, you know what I mean? Like, it's hitting awfully close to home.
It can be. It
Okay.
can be. It's but no.
Because I
don't think
enjoy
so.
the Disney movies.
And the fact is that you have to admit now how Disney is now Star Wars and Marvel
That's
and
true.
all that
That's-
stuff.
That is a
And
good point.
Indiana Jones.
It's-
That's a good point. All right, that's a
Right.
good point.
So
They took over Lucasfilm.
yeah, they took over all that. So
Okay, all right. There's some level.
there's
of that.
some of that, and there is things there to do for adults.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. All right.
I did go on my honeymoon to Disney.
Did you really?
And we went as just adults without kids, and we had a great time.
How old? But you were young too, right?
I mean, I was 22.
Yeah, but
23.
that's
So,
young
yeah.
in comparison.
Yeah.
Like you're.
I then went as I
But-
could not see going back without the kids.
I
yeah.
would have no interest. We're going tomorrow. We're leaving for Myrtle Beach, right? This
Right.
is the only trip we're doing this summer. I wouldn't be if she said I really want to go to Disney World. I'd be like, I don't think he's old enough. My son's a
Right.
year and a half. I don't think he's old enough for that yet. And she would be like, well, I just want to go us. I'd say, nah, we can go to a beach. You know what I mean? Like we can go somewhere where they serve fruity drinks. You know what I mean?
I just don't.
Like,
I mean, I don't know. Some people, it's their thing. For me, it's then you're standing in lines all day and everything.
yeah, that's true
and,
too. Like,
And it's like, if I'm gonna do that, it's gonna be for the kids,
right
for them to have this really cool memory.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Now, you have sold me a bit on the Star Wars stuff and the Marvel and all that. Like,
Yeah. So
it's because I am admittedly nerdy
Right.
as
I mean, if you're a
you know what.
30-year-old man going down to see all the princesses,
Yeah, that
might be
right,
creepy.
You're probably a creep. Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right.
All
You
right.
handle that. I think you handled that appropriately.
all right,
In fact,
I've got.
do I need to apologize to anybody? Or?
He'll be
Probably
fine.
Bert.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Bert. Hey, enjoy Disney. Enjoy. Go to the castle.
He did take his kids. He's got 3
Oh,
kids.
all right. So
he
there
didn't
you go.
on his
All
own.
right.
All right.
There you go.
So now's a good time to remind people that we're still selling our Trumbo, Trump type Make Baltimore Great shirts on section336.com and at all Mother's locations. So you can go pick those up now.
I passed by Mother's on my way in.
Yeah, that's Mother Peninsula Grill.
Yeah.
They're right there on the wall. I had dinner there the other day,
Very cool.
and they're at all the other Mother locations as well.
There's another one up by me now. There's a Mother's in Cockeysville.
Yep, Mother's North.
Yep.
Yeah, they're there.
That's not far from. It's about 15 minutes from where I
Yeah.
live in northern Baltimore County.
You can go there and get a Trumbo
Very
shirt as
cool.
well.
Very cool.
Also, we are having another group outing game on August 20th, which is the Chris Davis and his dog bobblehead night, Saturday. So we've got about 30 tickets that we're selling right now on section336.com for $15, which is way cheaper than anything you'll go buy at the stadium right now or online.
That's a
thanks to
Saturday
fees.
too, so that game will be.
It's a Saturday. That game
Yeah.
and that bobblehead's the
Oh,
game's going to be
yeah.
sold out.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
So head on over and get our tickets. They're even cheaper than StubHub. So if you don't come buy the tickets, I'll just put them up on StubHub and
You'll
we'll be all right.
Right. You'll make the money. off of them.
But we think it'd be fun for a lot of you to come out and enjoy the game with us. Plus, it's the end of August. It's the Astros. Hopefully, I mean, Astros have been playing good baseball, but it's home, and the Orioles play well at home. It's got to be a meaningful
Well,
game.
yeah, it'll be meaningful for them. I don't know if it's going to be meaningful for the Astros, but the Astros are still fun to watch.
I mean,
Jose Altuve is the MVP right now, right?
yes, unless they do the whole I only
You have to make the playoffs.
You got to make the playoffs, right?
So then, okay, so let's say you have to make the playoffs. Then who is it? Donaldson again?
You might be able to argue for Manny,
Manny,
depending
yeah,
how
you
far
can
the
make an
Orioles
argument
go.
for Manny. Yeah,
Manny
that's a
would
good
be an
point. You
easy,
can make an argument for
especially
Manny.
with his home run tear he went
No,
on.
you're right. Yeah, I mean, because he did not have a good July.
Right, but 3 home runs on
No,
Sunday.
dude, trust me.
He's making up for it.
You don't need to argue for Manny for me. Like,
No,
I'm good with that.
Did you see Ubaldo pitch 3 perfect innings during that game?
I guess I didn't realize
He came in
that.
after Bundy. He pitched 3 perfect innings.
I didn't realize. That's
and,
really funny.
and people were online were making a big deal about his arm delivery. Because
Is it different?
Apparently, he used to go 1 to 7 like this, and now he comes up straight with a 12-6.
Interesting.
So people were making a big deal of did that bring out the good Ubaldo? And the question is, when Ubaldo comes back again, how's his delivery, and does this give us any hope that maybe we can have a good Ubaldo?
No.
You're done with Ubaldo?
No. Yeah, I'm done with Ubaldo. I was really bothered by the Melvin Upton rumors, right? Not because I'm wholly opposed to Melvin Upton being on the team.
I mean, the best part of that was to get rid of Ubaldo,
and
right?
that's my problem with it, right? So would you have ever traded away 2 prospects for Melvin Upton Jr.?
No, he's batting like 190 or something right now in Toronto.
So you can get rid of Ubaldo tomorrow, right?
Right, just eat the money.
You just have to eat the money. That's the way it works. So I'm not giving up prospects in order to get rid of money. That's not my problem, right? You know what I mean? I get it for them. I understood why it's desirable, but it doesn't, for me, for baseball purposes, it makes no sense. It's not a trade that made any sense. You can make the argument that Melvin Upton could be your right fielder next year when presumably Mark Trumbo is going to end up walking.
Right.
But I think they can go find a Melvin Upton caliber player. I think they can go find a right fielder on the market that's not, they found Mark Trumbo, right? And like in a trade where all they had to give up was their third catcher who, I like Steve Clevenger. I don't want to take anything away from him, but he wasn't going to be a significant part of this team this year.
Right. And
so
if there's anything that bothered me with the trade discussions is then the 2 moves we do make were moves that we could have done preseason and not even had to give anything up.
It's a Duquette thing, man, and it drives you nuts. Neither one of the trades are bad. It's not like they're
not bad.
You don't shake your head at them. They're largely kind of meh. You know what I mean? Like
Steve Pierce has a hurt arm now or something,
and that's a bummer. But
that's,
they don't know that, and he's a professional hitter. And I understand why you want to have Steve Pierce on your team. The problem is
you could have had him all
Steve
year.
Pierce on your team. You didn't have to give up anything in order to get Steve Pierce.
You chose Nolan Reimold over Steve Pierce, is what you did.
Right. So that does bother me, and I can't lie about it. It bugs me that you decided we don't need this guy, but then you need him so much that you have to give up a piece to go get him. And say whatever you want to say about Jonah Heim, but Jonah Heim's a thought-of defensive prospect, and you can say, well, the organization is deep with catchers. Okay, but Matt Wieters probably is gone at the end of the year, right?
Oh, he's gone. Yeah.
And Caleb Joseph has been okay this season, but do we still think of Caleb Joseph as a guy that's going to be a very good Major League player? Or
I had this discussion last week about, I think it was with Caleb Joseph. The problem with everyone online will argue for Caleb Joseph because the pitcher's line is better.
Seemed to be better, right? Yeah.
But I don't know how much of that you can really put on the catcher.
No, I don't know either. And also, I know that I still like to have Matt Wieters' arm behind home plate. I mean, like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, he just made that throw. That's one of the best
was one of the
things
most ridiculous
we've ever
things.
seen.
Correct.
Caleb's not doing that.
So Caleb, he's fine, but that's what he is. He's just fine. I don't think you're of the belief that he's your 10-year catcher of the future.
No.
Chance Sisco, maybe, right?
Yeah,
maybe
but then
could be that guy.
But then what do we keep hearing about Chance Sisco? He can't
He's not a good catcher, right?
Yeah.
He's a heck of a hitter. He's a great hitter, but he can't catch, right? So I just don't. I can't dismiss this notion that you didn't give up anything, and that's what people want to say. Like, well, you didn't really give up anything to get him. Like, no, you gave up.
No, you gave up the guy that Duquette keeps talking about as being a really good defensive catcher.
Yeah,
and you've got a manager who really values defense.
Right, and a guy that at worst, even if he's not ultimately a catcher of the future, presumably could be a guy that you could get more back from in a trade if you hold on to him for another year or so.
Yes.
So I think that is the frustrating part, all for a guy that you could have had at the beginning of the season. And the Wade Miley thing is fine. And I made the comparison to Doug Fister, and it's important to say, look, Doug Fister's not a left-hander, so it's not apples to apples. That they didn't get Doug Fister is one of the most infuriating things about this team. Like, Doug Fister was the guy. He's the guy for this team to go get. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that ever lined up better than the Orioles don't want to spend money on pitching. But look, this guy just happens to be lingering around for whatever reason. He came off a rough season. He's got a track record, including spending time in the American League, which is incredibly valuable when you're talking about...
Right, because that's what we keep doing is bringing people from the National League and watching them fail.
Right. So Doug Fister was the guy, and the cost was minimal. It was a minimal cost for pitching to get Doug Fister. So that has been, I think, the most infuriating thing for me is that, like, that's the guy that you could have had and made the most sense. You didn't get him. Instead, you end up, again, giving up a piece. I get it. Not a 27-year-old is not really a prospect as much anymore as they are a project. And that's what Ariel Miranda was.
Right.
But I would not be surprised at all if we get to the end of next year and we're talking about how Ariel Miranda has had some success out in Seattle.
He had a good first outing in
definitely
Seattle.
had a very good first start.
And it was very interesting to see a guy that we saw a slight glimpse of him up here in Baltimore, and he pitched 1 inning.
Right.
When we were out in Seattle.
Yeah, they don't have a lefty. They wouldn't give him just one chance to start.
Yet we would have constant weeks talking about who we don't know who our 5th starter is.
Right.
But we had this guy who the Orioles kept saying the best he can give us is a mid bullpen arm.
Right.
Yet you go to Seattle and he's a starter right away.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. They're in a position where they can. And,
right.
That does change things.
Yes.
But you gave up something to go get Wade Miley, and I just wish that you would do these things in the offseason. You don't have to give up pieces. It costs you money, right? I get that, to make moves in the offseason. I also think trades are better in the offseason. You tend to make more favorable trades in the offseason than you do July 31st because you have a need, right? I think you get more for your dollar in a trade in the offseason as well because both teams come to it from a more even place.
Right, but what you get is in January, you get Duquette, and I don't know. I don't like to believe that Peter Angelos is really that involved. But
he's involved. I mean, every owner is going to be involved.
But I don't buy the conspiracy that he was blocking the Upton move.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if Peter Upton, if they came to Peter Angelos and said, "Hey, this is the deal. We're going to take on X million dollars of Melvin Upton," and Peter Angelos, who knows nothing about the situation, right? He's not paying attention to baseball. Says, "So let me get this straight. We have to pay how much to make Ubaldo Jimenez go away?"
Right, but
and we've got to pay for Melvin Upton on top of that. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? From a money standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. That wouldn't surprise me necessarily if Peter Angelos said that, but I also don't really have a problem with it either.
No,
right?
and that's right, exactly. And I didn't like that deal, so I'm okay with that. If
Peter Angelos walked in and said, like if you had a deal on the table where you would give up, insert name, Aubrey, who's the catcher? Perez, Aubrey. The guy that's at AAA. There's a AAA catcher, Perez. If you had a deal on the table where you're like, we're going to give up Perez.
Pena?
Well, there's
Pena.
Francisco Pena too. Yeah. So if you had a deal on the table where like, we're going to give up this, the backup catcher at AAA, and we're going to get, whoever it is, we're going to get Sonny Gray. And Peter Angelos walked in and said, "No, I'm not going to do that." Well, then,
that's a problem.
Well, okay, let's have a conversation about that.
But I can see that being an issue in January when you're looking at this team and saying our pitching sucks. Does bringing in another 4th pitcher really going to get us to the postseason?
Right.
Everyone's saying we're going to be in last place. It's got to be harder to convince the owner to open up his checkbook when everyone's saying you suck.
Yeah,
when here you're hey, look, we're winning games. We just need a little push.
Well, let's tell the truth though. Like, he paid an exorbitant amount of money this offseason.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's just that the exorbitant amount of money mostly went to one guy, right? And in fairness, Darren O'Day got a boatload of money too. Let's not pretend like they didn't pay Darren O'Day real money.
Well, and those guys played well enough that they deserved that money.
Nobody's and none of us. I know that Chris Davis is struggling.
Yeah,
I still have no complaint about it. Zero. Because Chris Davis was a good baseball player that offers you something, and you had the opportunity to have him, and you were able to get him. So that's a thumbs up from me.
Yeah.
He's a special type of baseball player. Yovani Gallardo is not a special baseball player. In any world, there's no world where Yovani Gallardo is a special baseball player. So I'll pay the extra money to get a guy who's capable of being very special. And I get it, the last month or so, he has not been special. I am very understanding. He has not been anything similar to special. But nobody was saying that at the All-Star break. Was anybody at the All-Star break sitting back talking about Chris Davis being overpaid?
No.
Or were we all saying this has been pretty freaking good?
Right.
You know?
And right, pretty good and leading the league in walks.
Right. That's a great point. That's a great
You know
point.
who else led the league in walks? Barry Bonds.
Yeah, he was good.
I mean, if you hit the
good.
ball long and can see the ball,
I'd take
you
him.
start to take some walks.
I'd take him. I was hoping that you were going to say, you know who else led the league in walks? Jesus. I was hoping that was where you were going with that, but it just didn't work out
I think that was
way.
before baseball.
You don't think but he never led the league in walks? I feel like if you're Jesus, you just you get a baseball card that says that because he's
Right.
going to argue with you.
Well, yeah, he's also the Cy Young. I'm sure.
Right, exactly. That's
And the
what you
MVP.
Yeah.
correct. That's what you say on every card. You're
Right.
like, somebody says, "Dude, I mean, you kind of weren't that great last year," and then you look back at him, and you're like, "I'm Jesus." You're right, man. Sorry, my bad. My bad. I apologize.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Davis. We know that he'll turn it around.
Yeah,
We've seen these streaks.
my gut
before.
is this isn't the end of Chris Davis. Like my gut is that the struggles in July are not the demise of Chris
Right.
Davis as a baseball player. I'm reasonably certain
Yeah.
that we're going to see him being an extremely good contributor for a
But-
very long time.
But what's with this team where it's all or nothing, everyone at the same time?
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
It's weird how I don't know if it's that. I don't know how to explain it, but when one guy hits, they all start to hit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, all right, I can explain that.
Well, sometimes
it's a good
'cause
pitcher.
sometimes right, it's because
Right.
James Shields
Right.
stinks. You know?
Right.
Like, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
If you can face James Shields a little more often, boy, what happened to that guy,
Oh.
man?
I know. A couple years ago,
It's
I
hard
would
to
have said
remember that he
send
was-
him all the money in the world.
Right? Like you can't even remember him being good because he's so bad now.
Yeah.
Like it's absurd how
It makes
bad he
no
is.
sense.
Yeah, there's no answer to that, obviously, and it's frustrating. But I guess the answer really is because you're so reliant on the home run ball. You don't have option 2 for how you're going to score runs. You're not going to manufacture runs in an inning. You're not going to do the Kansas City Royals thing from the last couple of years because you just didn't put that team together. It probably leaves it makes you more bitter that the Dexter Fowler thing didn't work out, right? Like,
Right. Because that's what we've been watching from him. He's been getting hits,
yeah,
getting on base.
imagine this lineup with Dexter Fowler.
It's why I see Nick Markakis and he's still a double machine.
Yeah, you still.
And I'm like, I would take that.
It'd be awfully nice, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? It'd be awfully nice. And that's no offense. Look, Hyun-Soo Kim has obviously been, largely better than we could have ever imagined that he was going to be.
Yeah.
I don't have complaints necessarily about the guys that are on the team. It's just you have a little bit of envy again, particularly because Fowler looked like it was a done deal.
And because how frustrating is it, like yesterday, to hit 2 solo home runs?
Right. That's all.
You're crushing the ball.
Well, you had the bases loaded in the one inning,
Right.
and
You're-
you only get the Manny Machado pop up.
Right.
That's
yeah,
all.
That's right.
all you get.
The one was.
And then Machado hit the solo home run
Right.
later. Yeah, but that's all you get from an inning where you had the bases loaded with nobody out.
And we've seen that many times this year.
Correct.
Where we load the bases with no outs.
But that's what
and
you're
then
built to be, and that's
nothing.
that's
Yep.
the issue. Again, inherently, when you build a team to hit
Right.
home runs, the good news is you're going to hit a bunch of home runs. The bad news is you have to hit a bunch of home runs.
Sure. Sunday I wasn't complaining with the 10
Right,
runs.
because you hit a bunch of home runs and it was a
Right.
lot of fun, and the Orioles look really good. But there's inevitably going to be a lot of games where you're just not hitting home runs that night, and there's no option 2. There's no, if you get to the 9th inning down by a run, this team has one way of getting that run in. They have to hit a home run in order to tie it up. They don't have the ability to say,
Right.
well, let's see if we can't get a leadoff walk, steal second, bunt our way to third, and then drive it in with a sacrifice fly. There is
Right.
no...
And that's the argument against Davis bunting. When he's in this slump and there's a huge hole in left side,
you scream, just bunt.
You
Yeah,
scream
right.
bunt.
Make him play honestly.
But what happens when he bunts? He gets on first base,
In the
and then he
inning.
lives on first base.
Either Trumbo hits a home run,
Right.
Or
It's all or nothing.
Yeah, correct. And it's infuriating when it happens, but you knew that's what this team was going to be.
Right.
You can't be surprised by the way this goes because you look at the team at the beginning of the season and say, This is what this team was always going to be. By the way, did a Nationals pitcher just lose a no-hitter?
Yeah, he just lost it.
Who was it? Who was starting?
Well, Scherzer was the guy that lost the no-hitter.
Scherzer, right? Of course it was.
And then it feels real bad.
Scherzer does is throw no-hitter.
Earlier in the inning, one of the outfielders caught apparently a ball off the wall, a big home run ball to save the no-hitter.
Man.
Then he loses it on that little blip.
Oh, that stinks. That stinks.
Those are the type of hits that kill the Orioles all the time.
Yeah,
have you noticed that? It's
true.
always
just,
the stupid little
right,
singles.
Just gets right there, no doubt. You did you when Bundy flirts with the no hitter?
What do you do?
What is it? Because
you.
Are you as panicked as I am? Like, I am.
You know what it is? Once he gets to the 5th inning, I'm like, all right, just get a little single. So then we can pull him. And
okay,
move
so
on.
you don't want right. See, I'm panicked because it's the one thing that I still kind of haven't tasted. We've obviously.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not to the. See, I'm not. You're talking about the fact that we haven't seen one yet.
Yeah.
And the fact that our chance to see one, we have a legit chance to see one this year with a Bundy and then the Bob Bracco Day. And
yeah, sure. If you
have a combined no hitter,
Bundy's not gonna finish a game.
But yes,
right.
I can see the frustration of we've never seen this no hitter before, and now you're pulling him.
But it's all of it. I think it's the human drama of Bundy combined with the human drama of in our adulthoods, and for many of us in our lifetime as Orioles fans, we've never seen one that an Orioles pitcher's thrown. We've seen it from the other side, obviously, with the Iwakuma.
I've sat through them, and
Buckholes and Hideo Nomo here in Baltimore. But we haven't experienced it where we got to enjoy it and celebrate it or be there at the stadium when it happens. So I'm like, when the night of the first one, the night against the Rockies, I guess it was, when the first time he flirted with a no-hitter.
Yeah, it was like a Wednesday night.
I was not there. I was at a bar with some friends watching the game, and like I was dripping sweat because it's all running through my mind, right? Could tonight be the night? Could I be out here with my friends watching it? But like they're definitely gonna have to pull him, right? Or like can you pull? Like and you're going through all of it.
Well, and part of it is because we have no clue what the Orioles are doing to handle his arm,
right?
And also not only that, we have no clue what the proper way to rehab Tommy John is. No one. The Nats were very soft on Strasburg and bringing him back. That worked out really well for Strasburg. We've also seen the Orioles.
Well,
we've
but
seen
on the flip side, what if that was the Nationals' best chance to win a World Series?
Right, and they blew it by pulling them out. They
might win the World Series this year, and so who cares?
I don't know. I think it kind of set the path that the Nats always fail in the playoffs.
Maybe so, right?
It's a Washington thing.
And so it's easy to have these questions because exactly what you're saying is correct. Nobody knows what the right answer is.
Right, because we've seen pitchers babied. We just saw it with Hunter Harvey, where he's been babied in the minors, and now he blew it out again.
Yep, didn't matter.
Didn't matter. They could have put him out there to throw 100 pitches, and it might have blown out. It might have not have. We don't know. And that's where with Bundy this year, I'm torn because I understand pulling him, but I also say if he's pulling a no-hitter, don't pull him.
Well, you're selfish, right? Yeah, like it's about you now.
Well, and it's not just about me. It's about this season, and we are in first place right now. There is no guarantee that we'll be in first place next year.
That's fact. That's a fact. Just go for it, right?
Look at the Yankees. The Yankees were the big winners of the trade deadline.
They
loaded up, which means next year we're going to have to worry about them. Always got to worry about.
And they're
Tampa
about to have
pitching.
a boatload of money to spend too. And they're about to be spending a boat.
Right.
They are having the Teixeira contract comes off the books this year. They still have to pay A-Rod, but they don't have to. Doesn't count against their luxury tax now.
Right.
God, that's a steal and a half, right? Like they still have to pay the man his money. But it doesn't count against their payroll.
Plus, it's New York, and it's not acceptable to have 2 losing seasons in a row. So they're going to be back fighting next year.
They're going all in, right? And everybody's going to make the argument they're going to hold out for 2 more years because they want to spend it on.
But they won't hold out.
They'll have more money to spend.
Right. They'll keep going. Yeah. Exactly.
They're going to spend money this offseason, and I get that it's not a great free agent class this year. I understand that, but they're going to spend money this offseason and spend money again in 2 years. They're not robbing from whatever money they're planning on spending in 2 years.
Right.
And make no mistake, if both Harper and Machado reach free agency, the Yankees will be the team that is most highly connected to both of them. And I get it, the Angels, the Dodgers, the Phillies will be some other teams that people throw around because they have money and things like that. But like it's real. The Yankees will not be like this for 5 years.
Right. And here we are in first place in August, winning games. We got to go whatever it takes and go for it this year.
I hear the argument. I mean, I hear.
And if Bundy blows out his arm,
right, then you're gonna feel like.
Then I feel horrible. If he blows out his arm in October, pitching in a World Series game, I'm okay with it.
Right, like you went for it.
You got us this far.
Yeah. It's tough, man. I talk to a lot of people around the organization about like how it's difficult for me to enjoy the Bundy thing right now because it really does feel like you're watching a human drama, right? Like. I know I should be reveling. This is one of the great phenomenons in Baltimore sports history, what we're witnessing with Dylan Bundy, right? He's single-handedly changing the course of a playoff race.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
We should be enjoying this. We should be reveling in what a magical... It's Fernando Mania, right? It's
right. He's done more than Wade Miley and Steve Pierce have done
could ever do.
At this trade deadline.
Absolutely. But yet, you can't enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it because there's this like striking fear in the back of your mind of, is the dude's arm going to fall off the next time he goes out there? Are you screwing up a guy that you really need to have be a top-line pitcher for you for the next 5 years? Like, you have this... And also, it's the Orioles in a pitcher.
Yeah.
So you kind of have this sinking feeling to begin with because that's what the Orioles do.
Right, that it can't be real because we all know the Orioles don't allow you to throw the cutter and then screw you up your development. Right. That's what the Orioles do, right?
That's who they are. So you should enjoy it. You want to enjoy it. But you can't really enjoy it because of all those things. And it's infuriating, man. Like, this is really special, what we're watching with Dylan Bundy. This is absurd. There was no way to see this coming. Remember, we were talking about, like, maybe he could go out there and give you 3 innings, right? Like, that was the conversation with Dylan Bundy. And heck, considering what you had, why not take
and when he was relieving, that's when we'd be excited to say, hey, he got 3 innings today.
But now we're talking about a guy that of late has been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball.
Right.
And we can't really revel in it. Like, we're just...
Except you got to say that the Orioles must not be over concerned because they let him pitch in the 10-0 game.
I really... Like, that was a really tough moment for me, man. I'm glad you brought that up. And I brought it up on Monday's show.
Well, because, as soon as we got the 10 runs, third inning, it's like...
You're like, dude, go for it.
Put Ubaldo out there. He can't blow this.
Yeah, right? And just go with Ubaldo from there.
Right.
That's all you do. You just say... Let him have his 4 innings, because 4 innings is a start, right?
Yeah.
And so if rhythm is a thing, if you want a guy on a rhythm, if he goes out and throws 4 pitches, inevitably, or 4 innings, he's throwing enough pitches in that process to feel like he made a start, right? Why would you go any further than that? Like, what are you what did you accomplish on Sunday?
The only plan can be that I want to stretch him out so that in September he can pitch 9.
I guess that has to be it, right?
I mean...
Which is why...
He's not out there to help the team at that point. He's out there for him.
Right. There's nothing... You're winning no more by sending out Dylan Bundy again for another inning. As it turns out, he ended up giving up a couple runs.
But he'll do that. I mean...
Right. Yeah, that one was really... that was more alarming than I thought. And this isn't to knock the beat writers that were there. It's going to sound that way. I was surprised, and this is a tough relationship between beat writers and
well, they always fall into get the guy the win.
Well, that is absurd to me. Like, it's 2016. Are we really still doing this? Are we still doing this get the guy the win thing? Like,
in that case, Gosman's horrible.
Right,
he never gets
stinks,
the win.
Obviously, that part's goofy. But no, it's more. I wish that we had the type of media, and I can't say this without it coming off like a knock. I know why we don't. It's a small market. One of the sources that provides a beat writer is owned by the team.
Right. The main beat writer.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the sources that provides a beat writer is Major League Baseball. You know what I mean? Like so from there you've got like 2 sources that provide writers that aren't directly associated with the club. So it's tough to have a shark media in this town because of those circumstances. So I don't want this to come off as a knock. I wish we had a harder, tougher media that could go in and say, Buck, you got to explain. You have to explain to us why you would let him pitch beyond the 4th inning, because based on what we've been told, what we've heard, what we know, it would seem like the 4th inning was a really good time to go get Dylan Bundy today and save up a couple of innings and protect his arm a little bit. So you can't just say, Dylan looked good today, we felt good about him. We need you to answer that question, because this is befuddling. This is really confusing a lot of people, and that's just not where this group of media is. They're not in a place to really...
No, the post-game interviews with Buck are only entertaining if Buck goes off course.
Yeah, right. He just starts talking
because no one asks him any questions. It's always, how did Tillman look today?
Right.
It's like,
baseball's it really is a tough sport because you're with them if a guy gets pissed off at you, man.
We've seen that before with the Orioles, where if they don't like a reporter, you're out.
Right. But it's even if it's not that drastic. you're on the road. You have a job to do. If someone doesn't like your question and now is a jerk to you, it's just made your job that much more difficult, right?
Right.
Like him or not, and people have their opinions about him. Jerry Coleman's a friend of mine. One of the reasons why we all liked Jerry once upon a time is, as much of a goof as he was willing to ask questions that we all wanted answers to, that we knew were going to piss off the person that we asked the question of. We knew it, and Jerry kind of didn't mind being the punching bag. Like, he accepted the role that he was going to piss people off, and they were going to scream at him, and they were going to pull him aside afterwards and say, "What the F was that?" And he kind of didn't care. He just sort of said, I don't care. They can yell at me all they want. And that was really important. We needed somebody like that to ask those types of questions. And this is both baseball and football. Like, it's the same way with the Ravens.
Right,
we have
sure.
the same market here. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same deal. So, Jerry doesn't really do as much beat reporting. He does still some for football, but he doesn't do as much with baseball. He goes in the clubhouse for like a minute, gathers some things, and leaves. Yeah. He's not as much the beat guy any longer. So you miss that. You miss having somebody that could kind of fill that role for you of saying, I'm going to be the guy to go ask the nasty question. I'm going to be the guy to go ask the question that is going to piss off the person and say, what, are you questioning if we know what's best for Dylan Bundy? You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't understand, and I could really go for you explaining to me why in the world Dylan Bundy would go back out for a 5th inning and a 6th inning today. How did that work? And if the answer is what you said, we're trying to stretch out Dylan Bundy to a point where he can go 7 innings, 8 innings, comfortably. That we can get to 100 pitches, then tell us that. You know what I mean? Like, let us know that's what's going on, so we're not all sitting here saying, what are you doing with this guy? And sort of worried that we're going to get to September and have him say, well, we didn't like the way that he looked the last time out, so we're probably going to shut it down with Dylan Bundy. Like, we're still kind of have a fear of that right now.
Right, and then the question is if they even tell us, or it's just, no, we're going to skip his start.
Right, yeah, that's true too.
So you just are always questioning everything. I think it's I've been very interested watching how the sports media has started to change. As you're a guy who was full-time radio, and now you're doing your internet show, and we're seeing a lot of other guys from traditional radio now.
But oddly enough, I've also gone to print, which is like the most backwards thing that I could possibly do in the world of media, right? Like, I'm doing the forefront thing, like I'm doing the internet.
Yeah, but your press box stuff, that goes in actual, like, printed papers, right?
Yeah, that you can go pick up a newspaper somewhere, like, and sit and read it on the toilet if you wanted to. It's a weird, like, I'm doing the thing that's out in front of everything, and I'm doing the thing that's like 30 years behind at the exact same time.
So I'm watching and interested to see how that's going to affect the Orioles and stuff, as they, at some point, they're going to have to accept internet sources as real media.
Yeah. So I'm glad you bring that up, because it is a really fascinating thing for me, and everybody is kind of coming around to it on a different level. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like the Ravens during training camp are really open to new media during training camp. They'll say, you guys want to come out during camp? By all means, come on out. Bloggers, podcasters, you apply for a credential.
Right.
And I'm sure there are rules to that. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
I don't know that it's
they're more open.
But they are, if you look in your timeline, if you follow some of the new media people that are connected to Ravens, you'll see that a lot of them are out there. Now, you won't see them out there necessarily for practice on a Friday in the season, because they're going to tighten up when we get to that. The Ravens are going to say, hey, when we get to that point, we're only going to have beat writers and traditional media. We're not going to go that route. But it's a good start.
And it is. And that's what it is. It's a start. And
because
we are learning it's all about those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. It's invaluable.
And the Orioles do the same thing for spring training. But you gotta take your show and you got to go down to them down in Sarasota.
Right.
And then they'll give you some access. They've been great to us at spring training. And it's not so much up here yet.
Part of that is paranoia. I have to, part of it is paranoia on behalf of the people, not the PR people necessarily, but the coach, the GM, the owner.
that want the people they're comfortable with around.
That they genuinely don't eat. Like, even if you work for a traditional media source, if they don't know you, like, I was not on the Orioles beat. I don't know Buck. I really don't, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I remember walking into I'd probably gone to like 3 Buck Showalter press conferences during the time, just because it wasn't my job.
Right.
That wasn't part of what my job was, and unfortunately, because the radio station I was on, Buck wasn't allowed to come on with me. So, and like now, I've had Buck on my internet show a few times, but on the radio, I wasn't allowed to talk to Buck. So I remember walking into a thing with Buck in Nashville when I was down there for the winter meetings, and the first thing was, he was very pleasant, and we had talked like not that long ago, but he didn't recognize me.
Right.
And I could tell he was uncomfortable, right? Like, he was like, hey.
Well, because he's interviewed by the same 3 guys every day.
And he just said, who are you? And I was like, I was taken aback because I just had him on my show. And, like, the Orioles knew I was coming, and I would have assumed they would have told Buck, hey, we've got, you're going to recognize, obviously, a lot of the people, but maybe you're not going to recognize someone who's here. It's Glenn from Press Box, and, you've been on with him, you've talked to him before. And I just would have thought that, but that wasn't what I got. What I got was, who are you?
Yeah.
And, Buck's a warm, Buck is such a likable guy that it didn't take long for me to say, hey, Buck, I'm Glenn, you did my show a couple weeks ago. And he said, oh, right, sure, And then we were good. We talked some college football, and we were good from there. But I could tell, like, he was struggling a little bit because
he's got to trust you.
Right.
And know you. And it's that.
Right. It's the paranoia thing.
Right.
And it's not getting better with teams. It's not getting better. It's getting far worse because they literally believe that, like, you're there to try to sell out secrets to somebody else.
Which is why they try to now control everything.
Correct. Like, and this is not a joke. John Harbaugh genuinely believes in his heart of hearts that there's somebody there that's trying to find something out to tell the Patriots.
All right. Why wouldn't you do that? If you were the owner of the Patriots, why wouldn't you send a 22-year-old kid down and say that he has this Ravens website,
and just dress it all up? Well, I mean, and that's why you don't really get that much information out of him, right? Like, so it's even worse. Not only do they block you from coming, but then the people that are allowed to come, there's just not much to be said, right?
Sure.
Like, there's just nothing there. There's no the other big thing that the Ravens will do, and the reason why they allow it for training camp is because the locker room's not open. So they really can control the message, right? Like, the only thing that's being said is being said at that microphone podium, or you can request an interview with a player, and then a PR person, if they're uncomfortable, can literally stand right over your shoulder the entire time and listen to everything that player is saying to make sure that player starts going down the wrong road or giving away some information. The PR person can step in and interject.
Yeah, I got a little of that with Andrew Triggs back
in
March.
Who's pitching tomorrow night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it is, right? Because they just don't know you. Like, they just, and they don't, and that's tough, and it's going to take a while to work on that. I do think when you get there are more young PR people coming into the business that understand it and that are doing their best to try to bridge this world and try to create a world where we understand how all of this works. It's just not there quite yet.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part. Just like they've gotten young guys in the clubhouse has changed baseball into this Moneyball, stats-driven thing. Talk the new look. So I think we will eventually see that on the PR side. Do you think the number of reporters now going towards trying to do their own thing on the internet?
That's interesting, like Dan Connolly.
Helps. Dan Connolly, Jerry, and Lockenfora.
Oh,
doing their
Coleman
own
and
thing.
Lockenfora, right? Yeah.
I mean, they're doing a podcast now, and they've got every week a big name on their podcast.
Yeah,
so
I
I can't figure out if that helps the internet media or if that's just their pals and now
that's a great
you don't
question,
even know
right?
you're doing
like
a podcast. You just think I'm doing my traditional.
Yeah, it's a great
radio.
question. Like, does their success benefit Section 336, or are the two things completely separate still? Right? Like, it's funny you bring that up because I've had people in the podcast medium, like when I started doing this, they were like, "Oh, good to see that you're one of us now," right? And like at first, I'm like, "What do you mean one of us?" Right? Yeah. Like I'm me. You know what I mean? Like I'm just doing my show and presenting in a different way. You know what I mean? I'm not changing who I am. I'm not changing. Right. It's just a different place that you're going to find my show. That's a great question. I think there's going to be more places to meet in the middle there would be my answer.
Have you ran into issues doing your same show because now you've got to explain to the PR person that they got to go to a website and click play rather than
like,
tune
here's some
in.
goofy things, right? Like
Oh, it's easier to get my show and listen to it than before.
Well, I mean, that's the way that I view it.
Right. There's so many positives.
Right. Like, for me, it's been a wonderful thing. But, yeah, there's definitely a level of you got to win some people over. The Orioles were far more quick to embrace me in this than the Ravens were. Like, the Ravens, I did get a lot of, like, what really are you doing? Like, if we put somebody on with you, where are they? It was not a quick embrace of what I was doing. And I'd still say, like, we're working on that, with the Ravens. I still don't think we're fully exactly there with them where they fully grasp it. And I've had some things that I was disappointed in with the Ravens, like things that I've usually been able to do in the past, that they were not as quick to say, yeah, we're going to do that again this year. Whereas, as I was talking about with the Orioles have been like, no, by all means, you want to play her on, great. Well,
that also probably helps that you got press box behind you who has had
a great
huge
relationship
with the Orioles.
That's a really good point too. Yes.
Besides the traditional guys, every now and then you'll hear Stan ask a question.
Yep, you're right. Yep, he's in there all the time. So that's a really good point too. The local colleges love it, right? Like, it's for them. It's one more way because they know that I like them, right? Like, I've always liked Towson. I've always liked UMBC. I've always liked Loyola.
And guess who listens to stuff on the internet? College
right.
kids.
You know what I mean? So they love it. They're like, it's one more way because I've always been willing to put their coaches on. I've always been willing to talk about their games. I've always been willing to do those things because, to me, I think it's a cool thing about Baltimore. I think local college basketball is a cool thing about Baltimore. You can call me a nerd and say you don't get it, you're out of touch. I don't care. It's my show. I get to do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's what I like. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't talk about it. Could you imagine that? Like, could you imagine sitting here? I really like Towson basketball. I really like Loyola lacrosse. I go to Morgan State for games. I'm the only guy in town that knows how to get to Coppin State, right? Like, and I go for multiple games a year to Coppin State because I like local college basketball. It's something that I enjoy. So they embrace that. Maryland has not embraced it so much, right? They put, I've had their coaches on.
Right, because they say, oh, we get the ESPN guy once in a while. We don't need you.
Like, we don't necessarily need you. Now, I've had the football team there because I think they get it. You know what I mean? Like, they need the publicity, right?
Yeah, they haven't done anything so great.
Yeah, so they've been more quick to, they throw players on. They put Durkin on. They put, I had Turgeon on once, and it was like he was getting on a plane, and they handed him the phone. They're like, here, you talk to Glenn, and it was like 5 minutes. That was it. So I haven't had quite the same, success with Maryland basketball. But, yeah, it's definitely been different. There's no question. Dude, so here, this is the goofiest of all of them. I'm a Maryland basketball guy.
Yeah.
I think anybody that knows me knows it's a big thing for me in my life. I grew up as a kid. Maryland basketball was a thing that we had. Before the Ravens came around, like, Maryland basketball was the other team in town. There was Orioles baseball, and then the rest of the year there was Maryland basketball. And Maryland basketball got you back to the start of Orioles baseball season, right? Like, then a football team showed up. But as a kid, that's what you had was Maryland basketball. So I'm a Maryland basketball guy, and I treat Maryland basketball like a pro team. You know what I mean? Like, it's when Maryland basketball games are happening, they're a big deal to me. We talk about them on my show. And I've always invited the opposing coach of the next team that Maryland plays to come on the show. In the ACC, I would get them on all the time. Because they knew me, right? Like, all the SIDs were like, oh, right, we're going up to Maryland, and it's Glenn. Of course, we'll put our coach on with Glenn. We know Glenn. Glenn's one of our guys. And so I have had any number. I mean, I never had, like, Roy Williams. I think I had him on once, and Mike Krzyzewski doesn't do interviews, right? Yeah. But, like, the Leonard Hamiltons of the world, those guys would come on with me a lot because, it was the ACC. The Big Ten, it's been tougher. It's been tougher because I don't have those relationships with those SIDs.
You're starting new.
So I'm having my producer will invite them on. Nebraska basketball is the most irrelevant thing in the history of, like, you couldn't for the life of you name the coach of the Nebraska basketball team, a player on the Nebraska basketball team, the old Nebrasketball team, or anyone who has ever played at Nebraska. If your life was on the line right now, if I had a gun to your head and said name one Nebraska basketball player ever, it'd be Dunsky. You'd be out. No. We invite the Nebraska basketball coach on the show. This is the response we get back from the SID. Well, what is it, like some internet show? And it took everything in me to not say back, and what are you, like, Nebraska basketball? You know what I mean? Now,
That's what you say. Well, outside of Nebraska, people listen to the radio on the internet.
Right, correct.
We've
I get it. In Nebraska,
on.
it's just...
We've moved on. I know you still use those old antennas.
Right, and just corn. That's all you have. I hear you.
Just let them know when they catch up to the 21st century, they'll sometimes get it.
Yeah, every now and then. But like, it's not even worth fighting. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to fight with the Nebraska basketball because I don't really care about talking to their coach. It's not... I'm not going to go in and try to explain to them what we do, anything like that. Like, I just laugh, shake my head, and say, we do still have to deal with that. Like, we're still dealing with these types of things. I'm trying to give... Nobody else in the world wants to publicize Nebraska basketball. But I'm offering you the chance, and you declined. It's on you, man. You know, it's not going to hurt me. My show will be fine. That wasn't what was going to get me listeners today, was having the coach of the Nebraska basketball team on. In fact, if anything, it might have chased away a listener or two who said, dude, not interested. Just not interested.
Sure.
But I was willing to do it because...
You like basketball,
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. We'll bring it back to one more. We went way over time, which is I don't care.
Yeah, who cares?
It's my house. I've got no place to go.
Plus when I get to invoice you for all this time too, which is good. Right.
That'll work out. we'll just pass that on to Matt and Bert.
Fair enough.
They'll take care of it.
I want what they usually get.
Yeah.
Whatever you pay them typically per week.
Oh, you'll get a Trumbo shirt on the way out.
Nice.
That's about it.
I'll take that actually. My wife will steal it though, so it won't last with me for very long.
Well, you might have to grab two. But there's been a lot of retirements this week, and it's funny. It's all besides Fielder. What's he announcing tomorrow?
Oh, is that? I didn't know that.
Oh, Prince Fielder.
Really?
Yeah, to medical injury.
Yeah, because he's got to get his second neck injury.
Oh, that's
the cool thing about him is he is retiring with the same number of home runs as his dad.
No,
as Cecil. Exactly.
Do they get along?
I don't think so. They look alike.
I know, and it was so heartwarming. Like at the beginning of his career, when you would see like Cecil holding his kid, and like it looked like they were trying to.
Yeah, I
think you're right.
I remember at least a few years ago that they were.
Yeah, I think
not.
I've heard in recent years it has not been.
So
it has not been great.
Scratch him. I don't really care.
Well, I don't know. That
him.
really sucks because I like.
Yeah, no.
Prince Fielder's been fun.
He's a guy
been
who's
good
fun
for
to
baseball.
watch, and he had so many great years.
Yeah,
that
he was really good. When he was good, he was really, really
but
good.
But then since his first neck injury, he just hasn't been the same guy.
Sure. Nobody debates that. But I'm bummed. I really am. Like that was a genuine response from me. Like I'm bummed for Prince Fielder because I think he's been one of the good guys in baseball. I think he's been a guy to root for.
There's been no allegations for him,
and so it just bums me out.
Yeah.
It really does just bum me out that a guy like that's not. You know, like Ryan Braun gets to keep playing.
Right.
And Prince Fielder doesn't.
Right. But to cheer you up, we get to see Teixeira
that's true.
and A-Rod go away.
So I don't know, did you see my column about Teixeira?
I did see your column about Teixeira.
Okay.
You're a guy that says you're not a fan of booing.
No.
Teixeira,
it's not that.
Or you were more on the side of it made sense.
In 2016, I can't hate Mark Teixeira.
Well, yeah, because we got Chris Davis.
That's my... It worked out for everybody.
Who knows what would have happened? Yeah.
This isn't me criticizing anybody for booing in 2009.
We weren't going to win the World Series in 2009.
And truth be told, like I was kind of opposed to it until like there was a little bit of me that was like, dude, really? Are we angry at the guy for taking $30 million more to go to New York? Really? But I still understood that it was sort of like a civic release that day for us all to get together and have a common enemy. And we were half booing Mark Teixeira. But we were also half booing Peter Angelos that day, right? Like, and it's...
Well, no. I don't see it that way. See, I see it as we're booing Teixeira because he grew up 10 minutes from my home down in Savannah Park.
I get it, but I do think it was...
But it's not where he grew up. It's the fact that he then goes there and says, Don Mattingly was my favorite player.
The Mattingly thing was over that. This, and I referenced that in the column. The only thing that still... I think is reasonable to be irked by about Mark Teixeira was the Mattingly comment. It was unnecessary. It's frankly not true. Anybody that knows Mark Teixeira...
Were the rumors true that he wanted to come back here?
Yes.
And play if he could still play baseball?
If in one of two scenarios, if Chris Davis doesn't get re-signed by the Orioles, he was going to try to coordinate with the Yankees to trade him to Baltimore. He wanted to come end his career in Baltimore.
How do you think the fans would react to that?
I think that if...
You've never seen that where you boo someone for 7 years and then he goes on your team?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like Johnny Damon showing up in New York, right? Like, it's...
Yeah, exactly.
It's goofy. It's definitely goofy. I don't know how that would have gone. I think that if he showed up and he stunk, it would have been really bad.
Right, it'd be... Why couldn't you help us out when you were good? You're just trying to clear your conscience.
I think if he showed up and he could play... it would have been great,
Yeah,
right? Like
thanks
we
for
would have
coming back.
happily embraced him. We would have really enjoyed that.
Right. Take back the Don Mattingly comments.
My issue is I just feel like in 2016 we all should be able to look at this reasonably as fans and say, this worked out for Teixeira. It did. He made a lot of money in more than he deserved, right? Based on the production that he actually gave. He won a World Series. This worked out for him.
Right.
It worked out for the Yankees. They won a World Series. Yes, his lean years have come at a bad time, but they've made a lot of mistakes. It's not Mark Teixeira's fault.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they got a World Series title out of it, and he was brilliant the year that they won the World Series. His 2009 was he finished second in MVP voting.
He earned all the money they gave him.
He was phenomenal. And truth be told, the 3 years after that, he was pretty stinking good too. Like it wasn't.
This is the first year he's not been.
This is the first year he's been horrible.
Right.
He's obviously been on a decline
Sure.
for a little while because of his body, but this was the first atrocious year. And it really worked out for the Orioles. He wasn't going to win a World Series for us in 2009 when he was putting up brilliant numbers, and his decline started
when we rose.
When the Orioles started to rise. So it wouldn't have been a good match. Like the Orioles would have had this albatross now at first base that's sucking up money. They wouldn't have traded for Chris Davis because what would they have done with Chris Davis if they had traded for him? So they would have missed out on that. Who knows?
But we did get to experience a little bit of that with Brian Roberts. We got to experience.
But imagine if
the
you
guy
were
who was
dealing
good
with
who
both
got
of
hurt
them
doing
at the
that.
same time.
That, I
right?
mean,
Like,
they would have. It would have overlapped.
In 2012, you would have been dealing with both, like Teixeira and Roberts at the same time. So for me, it's way more about.
Yeah, you look back and it worked out.
In 2016, this is good for everybody. And truthfully, like, he's a kid. He's not far from here, right? Like,
no, it's less than 10 minutes down the road.
He's a kid that grew up here. He was an Orioles fan growing up. Let me make this very clear. He was an Orioles fan. Ask anybody who knows him.
Right.
He was an Orioles fan growing up. He likes this place. He's whether we want to admit it or not, he's one of us. I kind of want to be happy for the guy. I really do. I want to say, good on you for having a heck of a career. He's been a gentleman. He's been a super nice
Exactly.
guy.
I'd love for him to come back to Savannah Park.
Right. I'd love for him. I hope that he cares about this area in his post-playing career. I just can't hate the guy the way that so many Orioles fans do. I can't do it. Now, if you do, right, like, I would encourage you to not. But if you do, you have every right to hate whoever you want to hate.
Right.
I can't join you there. I can't join you in hating. Now, you want to have a conversation about Alex Rodriguez?
Well, and that's not exactly the direction I wanted to go to because, I don't. The guy retires, great. I have no hatred towards him.
Yeah.
Where A-Rod, I'll continue to hate.
Right.
But
you know who else?
But
I despise David Ortiz.
I do too.
It sickens me. This thing that we're
doesn't
doing
matter
with David
what
Ortiz
does after this. But what I want, and I forgot about Ortiz on the list too, because what I wanted to talk about was what it is fun, and it's fun to boo Teixeira because it's fun to boo villains. And now that we've got Teixeira and A-Rod and Ortiz going, and Batista's having a down year in Toronto, which means they're probably going to move him, who's the guy?
Well, I mean, if Batista ends up somewhere that he plays the Orioles, he's 1A.
Right, Batista's 1A. But let's say Batista ends up in the National League. Who's the guy? Who's the villain?
That's a great question.
I don't know who the villain is.
Really good question.
I was thinking about it today.
Can we force it on Donaldson on behalf of the Manny versus Donaldson
and that's
debate?
The first one that
this
came.
Is just the guy. It's going to have to be Donaldson.
It's got to be Donaldson unless something happens in this postseason.
What if Dexter Fowler signed with an American League team next year? Because he only signed a 1-year deal in Chicago, right?
Guess who needs an outfielder?
The Yankees.
He could be here.
Oh boy, that is a great point. We do really need a right fielder next season, don't we?
Wait, what if we become the enemy to the rest of the league?
Well, I'm good with that.
Well, no, that's
right. Like you want to be the enemy.
Yeah, you want to be the enemy.
But what if Dexter Fowler signs in New York next year? Well, you got your answer. Then it's Dexter Fowler. They got money to spend, right?
Yeah, then it's Dexter Fowler.
You'll have your guy. It'll definitely be Dexter Fowler. I mean, this city will come out in droves.
It would be
Fowler.
Right? And that's the thing is, all of our villains are leaving this year. Who knows how next year's going to go?
Who's the most unlikable of the young Boston guys? Of the Betts, Bogarts, Bradley.
See, I don't know. I like
right. Like they all kind of come off
okay.
as good baseball players.
Right.
None of them have pissed you off
right.
yet. Like none of them said anything that drive you crazy.
Yeah. Like
one of them's going to, right? Like inevitably, one of them's going to say something stupid, and you can't have all three of these guys be in such a high-profile place playing important games without one of them popping off and saying something about, I hate Camden Yards. The visiting. There's a smell in the visiting clubhouse.
I guess when Ortiz leaves, someone has to talk into the microphone.
Yeah, but definitely. I think that one of those guys will ultimately end up being a heel. Like We're just not there yet because, Ortiz is the guy, you know what I mean? But I guarantee one of those guys ends up becoming a heel.
I guess so, because it's the
moving
same
forward.
with the Yankees right now. It's like, I don't know who's going to – it's going to be some young guy.
Well, you also can't name half of them
Exactly.
right now.
Exactly.
Like, with a gun to your head, you had to put the
So-
Yankees lineup together. You'd be like Didi Gregorius.
Right, and guess what?
Starlin Castro,
And-
Brian McCann.
Right, but you're naming guys who just play baseball and they
Right,
don't,
like
they
there's
don't
no
speak out.
reason. Yeah,
There's no reason to hate these guys.
Correct, no doubt, man. I'm
And
with
we've
you.
had – and we're talking about 3
You know
guys.
what? Pedroia's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, right? Like, and I know that he's a guy that
yeah.
if he played for you,
But-
he'd be your favorite baseball player.
Right, that's the thing. He's
Yeah.
the hard worker. He's the Brian Roberts.
But that's kind of what pisses you off about him, right? Is you're just like, everybody praises how he's the greatest thing ever, and you're like, oh, you know what? Shut up. It's
No,
just
but
Dustin Pedroia.
That's the Ortiz argument.
Yeah, that's
is,
true.
is
But Ortiz,
why do you people love Ortiz?
But you know he's a bad guy. You don't know
Right.
that Pedroia is a bad
True.
guy. Pedroia
Yeah.
might be like the nicest guy on the planet. I think it's when they call him like Scrappy McScrapperson. I'm like, oh, for Christ,
Right.
just stop it already. Come on. Maybe I just hate everything related to Boston. Maybe I just have a Boston problem.
I mean, sure, there's some of that.
yeah,
but,
I think it's what it's gonna be. I think Pedroia could be a guy for me. I could find myself manufacturing.
Well, especially
reason to be
if
bothered
he
by
has
it.
a good season.
Oh yeah.
If he plays well,
Yeah.
then it's way easier to hate him.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
the guys that the top 4 in Oriole hatred of Ortiz, Batista, A-Rod, Teixeira. The reason those guys are hated is also they're good.
Oh yeah, no question.
You
Right?
know?
If they weren't good, we wouldn't
Yeah.
care. Yeah, no doubt. I would say I'm now rooting that if it's not the Orioles, like the Orioles can't, like Fowler couldn't come back here, right? Like it's got to be too awkward. Think about you had Peter Angelos.
You had Adam Jones out there saying I spoke to him. He's on the plane on his way.
Can he really?
I don't know.
Now I'm kind of rooting for him to sign in New York so I can hate him. You know what I mean? Like you almost can't hate a guy who plays for the Cubs because it's the Cubs, right? Like how are you gonna hate somebody who plays for the Cubs? You know what I mean? They're the team. If the Orioles don't win, they're the team that we all want to see win because.
Well, they're the team we all want to see the Orioles beat. In
Well,
the
that's
World
true
Series.
too. Yeah, I would like to see that. But if he showed up in New York next year, if Dexter Fowler went from spurning the Orioles to signing with the Yankees, he's definitely public enemy number 1.
Yeah.
And he gives us
as long as he's playing decent baseball.
Yeah, he's a good player
if
though.
he
So
doesn't-
you
right.
assume that he's going to be.
I guess it's just when players come here that they start to suck.
That's so true. He's been so good in Chicago.
I know,
Oh, God,
I know.
He's been so good. Drives me insane. He's been so freaking good.
Well, what if Wieters goes to the Yankees?
Oh, right. Wieters is going to be free agent, too. That's a good point. He's going to go somewhere.
Yeah, but,
I don't
but
think
he's
the
not going
Yankees
to jump
sign
to
him.
your top of your people you
Yeah,
hate.
because we really like Matt Wieters so much, right?
If he sits and puts on those pinstripes and says, "This is what I wanted my whole life. I'm so glad to be out of Baltimore."
Yeah.
He jumps to the top.
Yeah, but if
but
he
he's
just-
not the type of guy that's going to do that.
Like, I never hated Mike Messina. I never
Right.
did. I couldn't do it. Like, I was more frustrated that the Orioles didn't sign him.
That's what it was. It was
Yeah.
frustrating that he had to leave in order to
Right.
win.
So I couldn't bring myself to hate Messina. And so if Wieters, if the Orioles don't even make him an offer, which the most likely scenario is the Orioles will try the qualifying offer thing again, and this time Wieters will say, although, I mean, really, if you're Wieters, is it a bad idea to take the qualifying offer?
No,
again?
it worked out well now. It's,
Yeah, right.
it's
It might not be the worst idea for him to take.
it's going to
it
be a little
again.
more money next year.
The Orioles might have to think about not making the qualifying offer next year. They might have to
Right.
think about saying, dude, we just got to let him walk this time. But if, let's just say, he declines the qualifying offer, says, I need to go get a contract this time, and ends up signing in New York, can you really be mad at a guy that didn't even have a contract offer on the table from the Orioles, right? Like,
No, and a guy who haven't we kind of talked ourselves in over the years that Wieters
He's
would be
gonna be
leaving?
gone, yeah.
We're kind of all surprised he stuck around this year.
Well, it's gonna make us mad. We're all good with it now because we're convincing ourselves you don't sign Matt Wieters because you have to put that money towards Machado.
yeah.
But it's gonna piss us off when the money doesn't go to Machado.
But all right, so if the Orioles do not sign Machado, we don't all get mad at Machado. We all get mad at the Orioles.
The Orioles, to some extent. I mean, if the guy signs a $500 million contract with the Yankees, he's
Right.
going to make himself a villain no matter. If you make
Sure.
$500 million,
Yes.
you're a villain
Yes,
now.
yes,
Like, it's
yes.
just the way it goes in baseball.
You'll still have guys that boo him when he
because
leaves
he makes $500 million.
because he didn't take the hometown discount.
Right, yeah. Why wouldn't you take half that to stay in Baltimore?
But there is always something about what's the difference that you can do with $500 million that you couldn't do with $400 million.
I don't know if you heard I was really, like, I love Buck. You know that. Like, I
Right.
love Buck. But when he said that about Chris Davis, when he was like, hey, Chris, walk into a Target, you can buy anything you want, right? Like, okay, I don't want to shop at Target. Like, Buck, I love you. Who are you to call? Are you working for free? You know what I mean? Like, did you go in this year to the Orioles and say, guys, you know what? I'll just do this for $500,000 this year. That's all I need. Like, I was really kind of disappointed with Buck getting involved with players and their money. Like, that's not your place, man.
It's not his place, but I think, I don't know. In baseball, we don't see it. I think in football, we see a lot of money blown, and a lot of players that say, maybe
right.
you would have been a better person if you didn't make as much money.
Well, that's the Trent Richardson story, right?
Right.
Did you watch the E60 thing?
I have not seen it. I saw some.
It was really good. I mean, it was really good. Now, I didn't come away sympathetic to Trent Richardson, but I came away empathetic to Trent Richardson, right? Like, I can see how a guy that had nothing growing up and whose family was always around him.
Right, because he would. Right, he said he got so many demands, and then he was paying for his family and everything.
Right. And that was my family's always been here. Like, my mom always took people in growing up. We didn't have anything, but yet she would take more kids from the neighborhood in. So, like, all I've ever known is taking people in. All I've ever known is trying to be more giving of what I have. So when I got all this money, that's all I could think to do was to be giving with it, and then I had people take advantage of me. Like, well, yeah, that's on you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
But I don't know the answer, because you give me $100 million.
You're gonna want to take care of.
I'm gonna give money away. I don't know what I'm doing.
You're gonna want to do that.
I don't know how to handle that.
Right. And it's fleeting. You know what I mean? Like, if it's just $100 million, you know what I mean? Like, it's gonna end at some point. It's not $100 million a year.
And it's I can buy everything in Target now, but now all my friends are telling me to go to this other store.
Correct.
Not Target.
Correct. No offense to Target. Target's fine, but like. You know, there's better stuff other places.
Right, and because I've got so much money, I don't think about it. I didn't know I spent $500 on a T-shirt.
Right,
and, you know, it's like
it just didn't come off that. Like, I just got a T-shirt.
Yeah, I don't.
No, that's where I'm at, and so I was. It's the only time I was really bothered by anything that Buck said. Like, it really bothered me because I was like, dude, you know, like, really? Could you imagine someone coming in and doing that to you? Like, when you're trying to get a contract. Like, Buck, why wouldn't you just work for $200,000 a year? That's more money than you need. You don't need more than $200,000 a year. Could you imagine somebody saying that to you? Like, these guys are going to get their money, and baseball players getting their money will never bother me. I will never sit here and say, you should take less, because I never would. There's never a time, like, I say that,
and because they're making the money, and yeah, they're making way more than us, but it's because we're all paying it. The owners aren't losing money. No. It's not like
yeah, they're fine.
We're all fine. Everyone's fine. So let them make their money.
So they're going to make as much money as they possibly want to make.
I love that. Right.
That's not. I don't understand why we try to make them seem like bad guys for that. Why is Chris Davis a bad guy for wanting every penny that he could possibly get the one time he's going to have an opportunity in his life to make this kind of money?
Right.
How is Chris Davis a bad guy in any way for trying to do that?
Right.
You would do the exact same thing.
That's what I want in my job. I want to make as much money as I can.
And in order to do that,
business.
if you have to go to another company, right? If you have to go to your competitor because they're going to offer you more, that every time, whatever the offer is from your own company, as much as you might like them, the other company says, but we're going to offer you more.
Right.
We don't care what their offer is. We're offering you more. You're going to go there because you're not dumb. Because you can't. It drives me crazy. And so I guess I'm really frustrated because I'm starting to come around on the Manny's not going to be here thing. Like, I was
I think Manny stays.
I'm
on the Manny stays side.
I've gone through all of the emotions here, right? Like, I was convinced it'll never happen. And then there was enough positivity, right, about it that I was like even at the All-Star break, the Jim Bowden stuff, I'm like, well, if Manny put a figure in front of him, like, he clearly wants to be here. He's staying here. But the more I talk to people, the more before the season, I thought there was a chance you could say, Manny, 10 years, $300 million, take it or leave it. And he might say, 3 years away from free agency, you know what, you're right. 10 years, $300 million. Now I don't have to worry about getting hurt over the course of the next 3 years. It's probably on the short end of what I could actually get, but buys out a few years of arbitration. I'll take your 10 years and $300 million. Today, that's over.
You think there's any chance they can re-sign him this offseason? Sign his extension this offseason? The Orioles, right now, they're not going to do anything because they never do. They
can, but I think as of today, there's no chance the number is less than 375.
Right, because he's working up to be the first $400 million guy.
I think that he's a shoo-in for 400
It's him
right
or
now.
Bryce.
I think the question really is are the numbers going to get so insane that if he gets to free agency, it's more like 450, right? Like, I think that's what we're trying to figure out right now. And people that are smarter than me are convinced that right now, the way the numbers are going and knowing who's going to have money, the practical value for Manny is more like 450 on the open market, right? So the question becomes, Are you willing to go the 375 and hope that because he's still 2 years out, he'll say the risk of injury over the next 2 years is worth it for me to potentially give up $75 million? Right. That I'll roll the dice that I might be giving up $75 million to stay in a place where I'm comfortable and not have to worry about getting hurt over the next 2 years. I don't think he's given up $100 million to do that. I think the most you can get a guy to give up is I think 375 is the lowest number that you could possibly get him to sign for. So I think
I don't know. You win the World Series, you go
yeah,
present him.
Right, yeah,
in a
that
good
would
mood.
help. Yeah, that would help. I don't doubt that. That would help, and maybe you
can get the extra money out of Peter Angelos. You get him happy to be in
Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Yeah, he made a bunch of money off of
you
Parade,
win the World
right.
Series, you can get this extension done.
Okay, you may be right about that. So go win the World Series.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's easy to say, right? Now that we said it, It's done, right? That's my gut right now. Is if you'll go 375, I think you could get him to bite. I think you could get him to say, you know what? Yep, let's do it. But I think if you come back with 300, 325, you might run the risk of alienate him to the point where he says, nope, I'm going to free agency now.
Right, if you lowball him.
I think if you do that, in which you think, again, that's more than twice what you've ever given to a baseball player. If you go 350, or 325, let's say, 325 is more than twice what you've given to a baseball player. To you, that's an exorbitant amount of money. But that could be enough of a slap in the face to Manny Machado for him to say, guys.
Or for him to pull the Tucker and say, here's my deadline.
Right.
Give me a real deal by then, or I'll just play my last season and enjoy it.
That's the way it goes. I really think that we're just not practical about what the actual value is of Manny Machado on a free agent market. I just think that we're not wanting to accept that for any number of reasons. One, because no baseball player has gotten that amount of money, right? And two, because we want to believe that things like the knee injury should make it a little bit different for Manny Machado, right?
Right, but a few years ago when Mike Trout signed his record-breaking deal, none of us were shocked by it.
No.
We all said, yeah, that sounds about right for Mike Trout.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, if you want to say, well, if Manny Machado's 400, then Harper's 500. Well, Harper might be 500. I mean, again, it's totally plausible that Harper could be a $500 million player because he's that valuable. Because he's Bryce Harper in New York would be a superstar, would be a media star.
Do you think Masson, they got to work this out? Do you think that
there's
a big hesitation of knowing how much money we actually have?
Right. I mean, I think it's a big issue. I don't think you can ignore it. If ultimately this ends with you losing the Nationals TV rights, right? Like, there's so many ways that this can end. You know what I mean? Right now, it looks good for the Orioles because they won the last couple of court injunctions. But those are just injunctions. That's not a ruling in any way. It's just an injunction.
Right, and that's the thing. We got to get this thing settled.
You really don't. You still don't know how this thing is going to play out. I still think the Orioles will be taken care of, or particularly Peter Angelos will be taken care of. I think the bigger problem is for the next owner of the Orioles. I think that Major League Baseball...
Right, because even if Peter Angelos keeps the rights, they're not going to pass on.
Right. I think that where we are right now is that let's just say that, and I think most people like John. I think John's a favorable personality now in Baltimore.
He spoke out really well after the riots last year.
Yeah, I think John's handled himself pretty appropriately. I really do like John. And I think Lou has tried to kind of show his face a little bit more and be involved, but I still think we don't really know.
No, I don't really know him. I've seen John speak out a bunch.
So let's just say that they think that they can inherit the Orioles, that they'll take on the taxes. They're willing to go. Now, I don't know that they can. I don't know if they have the money to do it. But let's just say that that's the way they want to go. I don't think Major League Baseball feels in any way inclined to do any favors for John or Lou Angelos. Look, they don't really feel inclined to do Peter any favors right now, but there's a piece of paper that they agreed to once with him that says they have to.
Right, because they're back 10 years ago, they needed
They were in a desperate situation, and they had to negotiate with him. And that's why for as much as a lot of us don't like Peter Angelos in this city, I think even the people that don't like Peter Angelos have had to sit back and say, well, you can't argue with him here.
Right.
You moved the team into his backyard. You had to give up concessions. These are the concessions that you gave up. And he deserved that. I mean, like, he owned the rights to the DC market, and you wanted to take that away from him. You had to give him something in order to do that. That's just you don't need to know law to be able to figure that out. It all makes sense. So, I think that ultimately the next owner of the Orioles, whoever that is, whether it's the next Angelos or whether it's Did they sell the team?
Right. If it moves families,
I think they've got a bigger problem.
Yeah.
I think that owner has a real issue on their hands about what the true value of this baseball team is.
Because you're suddenly now a small market team with a small market television.
And it doesn't matter to Peter Angelos because he was guaranteed a value for this team, right? Like he's guaranteed he's not losing anything in this process.
Right.
But the next owner could be paying Confederate money for a franchise. They could be paying a value for a franchise that's simply not going to be what they inherit.
Right, because 15 years ago, this was a
major market.
Market.
Because you had two markets.
Right. There's the reason you can...
And because, really, the Orioles were not just the closest team in Washington. They were Washington treated the Orioles like one of their teams. I don't think people fully understand if you weren't there. Cal Ripken's a god in D.C.
Right.
Cal Ripken is a beloved figure in Washington, D.C.
Right. There's a reason their ownership group keeps bringing Cal in.
Yes.
And keeps talking to Cal.
He's a beloved figure there because the Orioles were treated, again, maybe not like the same way that they treat the Redskins, but they were treated like a Washington professional team in that city. You lost a lot when you lost Washington. There's just no argument about that. So if the next owner, ultimately the way this ends is they say, we're still going to give you a little bit, but the majority of the rights are going to transfer to the Nationals, which probably means Masson comes to an end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now you sell it to Comcast, right? And say, you can probably make... And
again, we go back to HTS or something.
Right. You can almost certainly make good money selling your TV rights.
Hey, at least I'll know what channel the Oriole game's on. Don't have to flip between two.
Well, the problem is you probably still have the same situation, right? Like Comcast would probably try to bid for Nationals rights as well. Yeah. But they need something for the summer. Obviously, they have no programming in the summer.
But you know what? They'd at least would fix it and make it a Comcast Washington and Comcast Baltimore.
Oh yeah, they probably would do that.
Instead of this 1 and 2 crap that
Masson's
doing.
I
have no clue why we don't have a
that's dumb.
Masson,
You're right. Baltimore,
1 and 2,
Masson,
Boston.
well, they don't have enough programming.
Well, no, it's ridiculous their daytime programming.
It's so bad.
They don't even try, and they're owned by the Orioles, which means they have every
content,
single Oriole game ever.
They have content.
And there's been some amazing games that we would watch over and over again.
You can make more.
You can do a stupid show like this or like Glenn Clark Radio.
Yep.
Well, I mean, the Nationals will probably be rolled into CSN because that's where the Capitals are broadcast from.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's more. There have been a lot of reports that CSN is very interested. There's also been reports that Fox is interested in just taking Masson off the Orioles' hands. That Fox Sports Mid-Atlantic is something that they're interested in. They want to create a regional network in our area, which I think would be good for competition's sake. You know what I mean? I always think competition's a good thing, so I would prefer that to just CSN kind of becoming a conglomerate, right? Like having the rights to everything. I don't think that helps anybody. I think it's always good to have competition. But whatever it is, you're still going to stand to make good money off your TV rights because local TV rights in baseball right now are very
But you're
profitable.
only going to make them off your team.
Correct.
Instead of now you're getting them both.
Correct. And no matter what, the next owner of the Orioles will be allowed to have their games air in D.C., and that is valuable.
Yes.
One thing that Major League Baseball will never do is say you can only have like in most markets you can only get one game. If you live in Phoenix, there's no you get the Diamondbacks game, but also the Padres. Maybe there's some San Diego people nearby.
It's like football. Football in Baltimore, you don't always get the Redskins.
Right.
I love living here because I have all the Baltimore and DC stations.
Right.
So I get both, but
that's a good point.
You don't always get that.
Well, but the idea being this is a unique situation where they said no matter what, the Orioles will always be allowed to be shown in D.C., which is important because then you can sell D.C. when you sell your advertising, right? And that does matter. I don't think people fully understand that, but that really matters. Even if you're not the primary team in D.C., you're going in with a prospective audience far bigger than if you were only allowed to sell Baltimore, right? If you were only where I live is nowhere near D.C., right? Like you live in Anne Arundel County, but I live in northern Baltimore County. In fact, there's an argument that if there's a second team that I should be getting, it's maybe the Phillies instead of the Nationals. But the Nationals will always be allowed to have Baltimore. The Orioles will always be allowed to have D.C. It's just that the Orioles won't always be allowed to have the Nationals TV rights, and that's pretty significant.
Yeah, I wonder how that works. How well the Nats do in TV ratings up in North Baltimore. How well they do in Baltimore County? No one in Baltimore County is a Nats fans.
Well, but the argument would be if they play the Cubs that night,
right?
Would you watch just for the sake of watching? Good baseball.
That's the cool part is that we get baseball.
Right. You get to see if you want.
Where the reason for it to always be in Washington is a lot of those people grew up as Orioles fans.
Correct. Yeah. Washington is still a significant Orioles market. It's not 50-50. Let's not.
And you go out, every Nats fan, what's your second team? Orioles.
Typically, yeah. Typically they are, because now, and again, as that generation dies off, you know what I mean? Like, there'll be less of that.
Right
now, we're still only 10 years removed from a lot of these people being primary Orioles fans.
No one has really grown up yet as
with
all
just
Nats
the Nationals.
Fans.
Right. Yeah, that generation is
just
in middle school. You know what I mean?
I guess they're just starting to become diehard baseball fans.
Correct. So it's just not there yet.
Right. All right. Well, we got to close up because I think. I mean, we're almost on 2 hours. We're catching up.
Serious?
We're catching up on like Glenn Clark Radio. So.
And I got to get on a plane tomorrow. I'm going to. Congratulations to Michael Phelps.
Yeah, Jacob Rock commented in this thing that he actually won gold.
Good for Michael Phelps. You know what? He's another one that I've really.
The cup and works.
I have. Yeah, I can go in, right? I've also really come around on Michael Phelps as I've I think we all went through like the kind of that kid's a punk, you know what I mean thing. But
all right, I've been the biggest Michael Phelps hater because he's been a punk and kind of lived his life with I do whatever I want. I go get these DUIs.
Yeah,
I smoke.
Yeah.
But the stories this year that he's been telling in the past year, kind of preparing for the Olympics about turning his life around. Getting married, having a kid, all this, where it's like, okay, now I kind of like you. I don't want to like you.
Yeah. No, I've come around on Michael Phelps a lot. I'm appreciative of it. I think that in a lot of ways he represents Baltimore better than someone who didn't go through a lot of those things, right? Our city's got a lot of warts, man. We got a lot of warts.
And that's what I'm excited about is I think Michael Phelps could make a huge impact on this city.
Yeah, I hope.
When he comes back. If he comes back and focuses on the city
And it's tough because I know he likes Arizona a lot. You know what I mean? What's not to like, right? I mean, it's a great place. But I hope that there's a commitment to caring, even if he's not here, to caring about being here. His family's staying here. His sister's in the area. His mother's in the area. I hope there's a real commitment to caring about our area because I agree with you. I think he can make a real impact.
We see the Orioles and the Ravens going to Helping Up Mission.
Yep.
And they're making Chris Davis is really involved over there.
No doubt. And Jeremy Guthrie's still involved.
Right, exactly. And
Brian Roberts is still involved.
Yeah, but it would be amazing to see a guy like Michael Phelps who went through almost exactly
like
what all those guys are going
absolutely,
through.
No doubt.
Where they're a huge men's addiction helps group, and he could come and
be very powerful.
Really relate, be really powerful. Yeah, so I hope we see something like that.
I'm happy for him. I'm glad that he's ending his career seemingly in a good place. And
he's got a shot for 25.
That's crazy, isn't it? That's crazy.
It's more than most countries.
Right. It's good, more than most countries ever. Yeah, no doubt.
All right,
no doubt.
Noah, let's go to you. You got some. Put on your music for you. You got some notes from the show today?
Yes. So I found out that the CFL is a summer league, but actually runs from November when it culminates in the Grey Cup.
Oh, that's true. The Grey Cup. Do you remember when the Baltimore team? You don't remember because you're not old enough. Do you remember Do you remember when they were in the Grey Cup? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, right. I didn't think you.
Well, yeah, because I finally had football to cheer for.
Well, dude, it was. Oh my God. The Stallions
bringing the Stallions to Baltimore
was so great. It was such a happy 2 years in my life. Like it's something the kids will never be able to understand.
I've got a hat over there because it was the greatest thing.
It was
because my entire childhood I was told you're not allowed to root for the Redskins.
Yep.
Oh, I don't have football.
My father would awkwardly root for the Colts, right? And it really made me sick.
Oh, see, I was raised to hate the Colts, hate the Redskins.
My father's problem was I can't root against the helmet, right? That was his deal.
I've heard that argument.
I can't root against the helmet was always what my father would say. So when the Stallions showed up, it was like, football? Football's awesome.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you know what? Some of these weird rules are kind of cool.
Yeah, they were goofy. You had to figure out the rules. Right. You had to figure out whether or not a guy should come out of the end zone or just take the point.
And then we got a new team name every year.
That's true. They had 4
different names. Because we started with the Colts.
Yeah.
Then we were like...
they were just the Baltimore CFLers.
The
and
CFL
the Baltimore
Colts.
Football Club for a little while. They didn't even have a name.
Right. Just we had the horse logo, but no name.
Remember Cunningham would start... He's like, the Baltimore CFL, and he'd just stop, and then everybody else in the crowd would yell out,
yeah,
Colts!
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that was the way that it would go.
It was fun.
Dude, it was some of my favorite memories of my childhood. But I remember the first year they played in the Grey Cup, it was indoors. That's when they lost.
Right.
The second one they won, it was like 5 degrees outside. And it was in November in Regina, Saskatchewan, I think.
Right, because the games are always played at this. I believe isn't the Grey Cup the one that they played
They
always
play
in
the
the
same place. Maybe they do. It was not even Thanksgiving yet, and it was like negative wind chills because it's Canada.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
Like it's absurd there. So I do vaguely remember that.
No, the Stallions are something that like your generation will not understand.
So they did a reunion last year. It was like the 20-year anniversary of them winning the Grey Cup. So they did an event at Towson, and they brought like a lot of players back. And Mike Gaffigan, who's now with I think Catholic Charities, but he ran PR at Pimlico at Preakness.
All right.
For years, and is one of like Mike Gaffigan is just one of the best people that has ever worked in this business. He's like I owe a lot to Mike Gaffigan. I've learned a lot about how you're supposed to go about doing business because of Mike Gaffigan. But Mike was the Stallions PR director.
Okay.
And so Mike, he reached out and he brought he came in and sat in studio with me one day last year, and we brought on Tracy Ham and we brought on Elfrid Payton.
Oh, right. Why not remember those years? That was really fun.
Because for people like you that understand it, like it is a special memory that people our age hold.
And somehow that team came in, and we all embraced them immediately.
The games sold.
Right.
There were 30,000 people to 40,000 at every game.
But we were so desperate. Like the Ravens, when they came, it was a build-up for you to really buy
it's a
full
reach
in.
to say, a lot of people try to tell you without the Stallions, there never are a Ravens. Like
right, because we proved that we could support a football team.
It's not really true. Like the Modell thing was already in motion before.
And we were being screwed around with the NFL for
like
other reasons.
The NFL was clearly considering us well before.
Right.
But, like, did it change? Like, did that teach a new generation about the rabid nature of football that, like, led to what the Ravens have become? Yeah, I think there's some parallel there. Man, I love those 2 years. They were 2 really great years in my life.
That's the funny thing is that they were that it was 2 years.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
It was 2 years.
It's a blip on the radar. You know what I mean? Like it was nothing. But yet I'm so fond of those 2 years. Like they mean so much to me.
Because we got a team, and then they were the best team in the league.
Right. Like
that never happens.
Awesome.
We got the Ravens. They sucked for many years.
That's right. They couldn't stop anyone defensively for the first 5 years. Like it's so funny with like another thing that like probably a guy like you does not realize is like for an organization that's known like defense, for the first 4 or 5 years, it wasn't just they had a bad defense. It was the most atrocious thing you would ever see in your life. They had leads of like 28-0 at the half that they blew in the second half because the defense was so god-awful for the first few years of their existence. Like, unthinkably bad. There you go. Never know, right?
You got anything else over there?
Yes, I actually found out the catcher for the Norfolk Tides is Audrey Perez.
Audrey Perez.
Audrey.
Thank you.
So I think you had that.
It was one of the guesses. I think I had about 5.
At some point, I think Audrey Perez came out.
Audie. Yeah, I think I literally named them all just to cover my bases.
And the current head coach of the Nebraska basketball team is Tim Miles.
Can you name a player?
No.
Yeah, right? I only know one. Eric Piatkowski used to play for Nebraska, and I only know that because he played for the Phoenix Suns when I was covering them out there. And, like, randomly, Nebraska football was a big deal in Arizona. Like, that's where, if you're from the Midwest, like, your Florida is Arizona. It's like the way the old people in the East Coast retire to Florida, old people in the Midwest retired to Arizona. So, like, there's these huge pockets of Cubs fans in Phoenix because, like, people from Illinois retire to Arizona. People from Nebraska retire to Arizona. So, like, Nebraska football, you go into a bar on a Saturday in Phoenix, and there'd just be, like, this big old crowd of Nebraska fans there. And I remember I randomly walked into, like, a bar one day, and here's Eric Piatkowski, a shooting guard for the Suns, just, like, sitting there. And I'm like, what are you doing here? He's like, dude, I'm watching a Nebraska game. Like, all right, fair enough. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool, I guess. And so that's the only player I could possibly name in Nebraska history is Eric Piatkowski. Pike, they call him. I think that's also a racial slur. So I'm not sure. I think that, like, you're not supposed to call a Polish person Pike. I don't think so.
But I think you do in basketball. I think that's like a
common.
Oh,
you're right. That's an Irish thing. But that's not Polish. I think it's an Irish thing. And I definitely don't think you're supposed to say that.
All right, well, Glenn, thanks for coming in and joining us and hanging out.
Love you guys. You guys have supported me and been good to me, and I have appreciated that a great deal. You've personally invited me out to baseball games, and I'm happy to come in for this, man.
And look at that. The Oriole game's about to start.
Yeah, right. It times out perfectly.
Yeah, I get to see Wade Miley. pitch.
Hopefully he's better than last time.
And hey, Ravens preseason in 2 days, and we spent more time today talking about the Stallions than the Ravens.
I will pass. This is not even a joke.
No.
I will not watch. I'm going to Myrtle Beach.
Oh, yeah. So no need.
I do not have to watch a snap
Right.
of that game on Thursday night, and you have no idea how happy that makes me. Which means there's a guarantee I will not watch a snap of 2 preseason games because you know damn well you're not watching a snap of the 4th one.
Yeah, I'm going to Matt's house for dinner on Thursday night. I know we'll have the Orioles game on as they play an early game.
They're playing an afternoon game, right?
But the question is, I don't know if we turn on the Ravens game because it's all young guys. Right, exactly.
If Perriman can run.
I don't even know if he's playing.
No, he's not playing.
Yeah,
you don't put anyone. If you put it, you don't.
Joe Flacco's definitely not playing.
Joe Flacco's not playing.
Yeah. They're not playing anybody.
I mean, like Suggs and Smith haven't even practiced yet.
Why would you ever watch this game? Ronnie Stanley's not playing.
Right.
There's nothing to watch. It's atrocious.
It's not gonna help your fantasy football by watching this game.
Right. If you watch the second or third game, I get it. And if you're just a season ticket holder, so like, you got tickets. I'm just gonna go.
You had to pay. You had to buy
right.
it. Yeah.
You can't give them away. Nobody wants them. Like, I'm not knocking you for that. I just don't know why
Right.
There's Olympics on Thursday night. Watch some of that.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot more stuff to do than that.
Yeah.
Never said I was gonna watch it.
Well, it sounded like it.
And
Get your act together.
Right. Or watch Hard Knocks. Watch the Rams. I think that starts like today or tomorrow. I think.
It does.
So that's the little bit of football I will watch this week, and maybe a little Ballers.
I don't watch Ballers.
It's okay. No. It's Entourage.
I do like The Rock. So
it's Entourage with The Rock. So it's
sound
okay.
like a terrible premise.
No, it's exactly.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's 30 minutes. If it was an hour, I probably want to watch it. 30 minutes I can handle once a week. So
GlennClarkRadio.com.
Yeah, GlennClarkRadio.com.
At Glenn Clark Radio.
Yeah, you go. You're 10 to 12, right?
Yep, 10 to 12 or 12:30 or whenever I feel like finishing.
Yeah, I'll catch like 15, 20 minutes live. But what I do every day is I subscribe to the podcast. And you are fast. I'm amazed how fast it comes out on the podcast.
We try our best. Unfortunately,
it's generally it's like by 1 o'clock it pops up.
Yeah, it should be that way.
And I'm like, hey, this is great. I can listen to it for the rest of my workday.
Sometimes people listen down on SoundCloud. We have some issues with that. But like if you're subscribed on iTunes,
I just subscribe.
Yep.
Works great.
You should be good. Yep, absolutely.
All right.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you for joining us. Next week we'll have Matt and Bert back for this episode 176. We've done a bunch of these. So, all right. And in that case, go Orioles.
Section 336 is an affiliate of 24/7 Networks. Find Section 336 on UtahStreetReport.com.